and gales developing widely.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewbs and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dewbs and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 22nd of November. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson. The bitter cold is not the only thing biting vulnerable pensioners this winter, as the new energy price cap is going back up, not down. Energy bills are now over 50% higher than pre-COVID levels. How are you coping?
And the government has brought back antisocial behaviour orders as part of its crackdown on public disorder. Offenders could be locked up for 2 years if found guilty of persistent street drinking, drug use or harassment. So, will this clean up the UK, or is this yet another power that the police could misuse?
And a 6th tourist has died following suspected methanol poisoning, with a hostel owner in Laos now in police custody. At least 5 British travellers have reportedly been hospitalised, with another confirmed to be one of the 6 dead. We'll have the latest on that breaking story throughout the afternoon.
And British farmers are now on their last straw, as new data reveals over £500 million is being spent on overseas agricultural schemes. With so much money being spent on foreign agriculture, we ask if that cash could be better spent protecting our own farmers.
I wonder how that poll's going to go, Tom. What do you reckon?
I think GB News, the GB News audience will will broadly be in favour?
I think so, considering the amount of money the government are going to make from farmers with that inheritance tax is just about enough to keep the NHS going for...
One day.
One day.
But it's not just Dawn and myself today on the programme. We've brought along a little friend. Let me actually pop along and fetch him. Here we go. Right. If you don't know, Dawn and I have ventured into the arts market.
Yeah.
We will be auctioning off our wonderful banana. We hope we can get... well, how much did a very similar art piece go for this week, Dawn?
It was a lot more than that banana cost you earlier, wasn't it?
I don't know, I got it from M&S. It was quite expensive.
Right, yeah, it was quite a pricey banana.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact figure when it was...
I think it was 300 million?
300 million,
something
yeah.
like that?
But it did include the masking tape.
Was it 3 million? I might have timed it.
3 million. It was 3 million, I think. 3 million. It was 3 million.
Yeah.
He's getting carried away with himself because I let him.
Government spending
never let Tom play with bananas. It gets dangerous. Okay, by the way.
Look at this. Look at this. Oh, 6.2 million.
6.2 million.
6.2 million. A banana that looks exactly like this sold for in New York. So we want to ask you. At gbnews.com/your say. How much would you pay for Dawn and my banana?
It's your banana, Tom.
You're holding it.
But I'm not. I haven't touched his banana. Okay, that would be completely wrong.
Goodness me.
The fact that I was eating one earlier on, that was like £6 million.
HR complaints are going to be soaring through the roof here. This is, but the fact of the matter is, I laboured and toiled over this artwork. I think it's worth $6.2 million.
Yeah, I would. Because it's you, Tom, I would pay that. I would pay double, actually.
Wow.
Probably, yeah.
That's the...
But there is a catch to this story, though, isn't there?
Oh, yeah?
Yes. You don't actually get the banana. But apart from that...
You paid $6.2 million and you don't get the banana at all. What do you get, Dawn?
You get a piece of paper saying you're an idiot, basically.
You get a certificate of authentication. You get a piece of paper saying you can strap a banana to your wall if you so choose. What joy.
Hello, HR. We're also talking about ASBOs, and if either of us get through the show without being awarded an ASBO, it'll be a miracle.
An absolute miracle.
The banana definitely won't make it, that's for sure.
Well, gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in all of our sillier stories, or indeed the more serious ones.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
And speaking of more serious stories, we're over to Sophie Reaper with the latest news headlines.
A very good afternoon to you. The time is just after 12 o'clock and these are your latest headlines. And we'll start now with a developing story. Gatwick Airport has confirmed that part of the South Terminal has been evacuated to investigate what they called a security incident. In the last few minutes, Sussex Police has said police were called to the South Terminal at Gatwick Airport at 8:20 a.m. on Friday the 22nd of November following the discovery of a suspected prohibited item in luggage. To ensure the safety of the public, staff and other airport users, a security cordon has been put in place while the matter is dealt with. As a precaution, an explosive ordnance disposal team is being deployed to the airport. Elsewhere, Foreign Secretary David Lammy has vowed to continue supporting Ukraine. That's following threats from Vladimir Putin to strike the UK. The Russian leader confirms the country had tested a new intermediate-range weapon in response to Ukrainian missile strikes earlier in the week. He also added that Russia are entitled to strike those countries who support Ukraine. Earlier, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, Kira Rudik, told GB News how important it is for the West to continue in their support.
The only thing that Russia is good at is terrorizing peaceful cities with the missiles, and they are not even good in defending their own country. Right now, when they see that their Western support is actually helping Ukraine to defend ourselves against Russian terrorist attacks, he is expanding the threats. The Western leaders understand the value of these threats and understand that the only language that Russia understands is the language of force, the language of power. And this is why we keep asking to continue strengthening Ukraine in our defense against Russia and its terrible aggression.
The Ofgem energy price cap has been announced this morning, and it's bad news for households. The regulator has revealed that as of January 1st, the energy bills of an average household will increase by 1.2%, a rise of £21. Given the 10% hike in October and the cuts to pension and fuel allowance, the news of a further rise this morning will likely come as a blow to many across the UK. Earlier, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey put pressure on the government to support those who need it most.
Energy bills are already too high. The idea they're going up even further is just outrageous. We don't want these energy bills going up any further, and we must bring back the winter fuel payment for pensioners. It's really cold at the moment. I'm really worried that there will be millions of pensioners not putting on their heating because of the reduction and the abolition of the winter fuel payment.
Judges at a specialist tribunal have ruled that more than 300 people affected by the Manchester Arena bombing cannot continue their legal action against MI5. Last year's public inquiry found MI5 had missed a significant chance to take action that may have prevented the attack. As a result, some survivors and people bereaved by the attack brought a case to the Investigatory Powers Tribunal against MI5. But in a ruling today, it was ruled that cases could not proceed as they were brought too late. Earlier this week, we saw farmers take to the streets of London to protest against the government's changes on inheritance tax. Victoria Atkins, the Shadow Environment Secretary, has sat down with GB News political editor Christopher Hope to talk about the extreme pressure our farmers are facing.
What is so worrying about this is that this literally rips the rug out up from under the feet of farmers who for generations have done nothing more than do the right thing, farm their land, bring their children up to understand how to run a farm, how to work with livestock, how to run an arable farm or so on. And suddenly this announcement has been made. These people are working 365 days a year. It is a hard way of life. They do it because they love it. They want to feed us, and so putting this extra worry on their shoulders and the threat of bankruptcy for many of them it's become an unbearable pressure.
And you can watch and listen to the full interview on Chopper's political podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or gbnews.com. And a baby orangutan who was rejected by her mother has been given a second chance. Kiwi, the Bornean orangutan, was born at a Spanish conservation centre in Alicante, but has now travelled first class across the Channel in order to start a new life at a Dorset monkey sanctuary. I'm sure Kiwi would be a big fan of Tom and Dawn's banana artwork. And now back to those two for more banana euphemisms. It's Tom and Dawn.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Sophie. I'm sure Kiwi the orangutan is going to be slightly disappointed.
Yeah,
One of us couldn't wait.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 12, and we're going to head back to that breaking news from Gatwick Airport. The South Terminal has been evacuated after a security concern was raised.
The airport says it is a precaution while they continue to investigate the incident, with passengers currently unable to enter the terminal.
Well, the Gatwick Express has also confirmed on social media that Gatwick Station will not be served until further notice. This causes, of course, further chaos for travellers.
Yeah, joining us now to discuss what's actually happening is travel editor at The Sun, Lisa Minnow. Lisa, lovely to see you this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This sounds fairly scary. Do we know any more about what's going on?
Well, a suspicious item, a prohibited suspicious item, was found at security in the airport today. That has prompted this, really quite dramatic evacuation of the airport, the complete closure of the train station, and now we await bomb disposal or explosive ordnance officers coming to actually check on what has been discovered at the airport. But this is going to cause absolute chaos. We're talking about the fact that you were going to have 318 flights taking off from the airport today, about 316 departing from the airport as well. That's the equivalent to over 122,000 seats. So it is going to be, if it is going to continue for much longer, really something that's going to be very disruptive.
That is extraordinary, given the knock-on effects that could take place after this. But what are the chances that this is innocuous and something that is just sort of someone left a bag somewhere they shouldn't have done and everyone's sort of overreacted? But, I mean, I find it hard to believe that they'd evacuate an entire airport if there wasn't serious grounds for suspicion.
Well, exactly that. You know, we're talking about people who scan millions upon millions of items of luggage every year. Now, this is a prohibited item, so this is something that obviously was not meant to be in the airport in the first place. So it is now a case of checking that. I can imagine, you know, I'm completely speculating here, but if you talk about the likes of perhaps a toy gun or something like that, but it's something that obviously has caused a huge amount of concern. The train station, I've heard, apparently perhaps won't be open until at least 2 o'clock today. So now that's a serious number of hours where the airport, you know, the second busiest airport in the UK, is not going to be operating. And that is going to cause, as you say, total chaos.
Lisa, do we know whether it was found actually in the airport or going through security, or do we know the actual circumstance?
It was found in security. So somebody had actually put something through the security channel that was prohibited. So that's where you would obviously be taking all of your items out of your bag, making sure you've got everything in your little tiny pots. That's the point where this has been discovered.
I find it hard to believe that this is sort of an aerosol or some nail clippers. I mean, this has got to be
make you
something.
wonder.
Yeah. I mean, they must every single day find prohibitive items. I just imagine they've probably got a big bucket full of this stuff. So this prohibited item, I mean, it would be wrong to speculate on the sort of motive or whatever, but it's certainly serious.
It very much is. And I think what we have to consider as well is just the knock-on effect, as you say, this is going to have. The number of flights that were due to be taking up and landing today, so many of those, they're landing, but they're not able to actually enter the airport. So you're going to have planes on the ground unable to, you know, disgorge their passengers into the actual terminal. You're going to have huge numbers of people arriving at the terminal. Now, obviously, we have had the trains being cancelled, so of course people aren't going to be arriving by train, and a large number do. But that's still going to have an impact on people who are perhaps arriving into the airport via cars or being dropped off by cabs, friends, relatives. So it's ever going to be increasing. You know, every minute that the airport is closed, there's a situation that's going to make it much, much worse. And then, of course, you've got the fact that flights are going to be out of whack. You're not going to have flights in the right place at the right time. And this will have an impact well into tomorrow in terms of having planes and people in the right place at the right time.
Lisa, what advice is Gatwick giving to people who are potentially travelling or meeting people today?
Well, unfortunately, it is just to say, be patient. The airport is closed. Of course, because this is an issue in the airport itself, this is not your airline's fault. So there's no compensation due should your flight be delayed or cancelled. But your airline does have a duty of care. Now, in this very chaotic situation, it's quite difficult for airlines to actually predict even what they're going to be able to do because they have no idea what the end date is for this. But they do have a duty of care to you. So once things do start to get going again, they should be making sure that you've got a voucher for food or drink. Should it involve an overnight stay because of your flight being, seriously delayed, they should be providing you with that. And if you do have to do any of that kind of stuff yourself, if you do have to buy something yourself, if your flight is delayed for more than 2 hours, that's for short haul, and up to 4 hours for long haul, then that means that you're going to collect those receipts yourself and submit them to your airline because they do have a duty of care, even though unfortunately it's not their fault.
OK, well, very useful advice there, Lisa Minot. We'll leave it there for now, but of course we'll be covering this story throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, letting you know any updates as soon as they happened. Now, another problem to contend with, especially if you're travelling. Brits continue to face freezing temperatures with Storm Bert. Storm Bert.
Terrible name for
Storm Tyson, at least. Come on.
Oh, yeah, no, you've got to have a sort of Storm Hercules.
Yeah, exactly.
Storm Poseidon. But no, instead we get Bert.
Bert, a Muppet. It's named after a Muppet. Anyway, Storm Bert is now approaching western parts of the country. Charities as well as energy companies are warning homeowners to brace for power cuts and urging them to stay warm.
Well, it comes as the energy regulator Ofgem confirms that household energy bills are set to rise again from January the 1st as it's announced a 1.2% increase in its price cap. What's the point in having a price cap if all it ever does is go up? Well, it's, of course, coupled with 10 million pensioners missing out on winter fuel payments this year.
Yeah. Joining us now to discuss this is GB News viewer Philip Hoy. Hello, Philip. Are you there? Philip,
yes,
thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Philip, very worrying times. What effect is the energy crisis and the price going up and the bad weather having on you?
Right. Well, I've suffered the triple whammy. Not only did I lose my winter fuel allowance, but a month ago my boiler packed in finally, which it was some years old.
Oh, Lord.
So I've had to pay for a new boiler. It's all on a credit card, so obviously I now owe that money plus interest in the future. But of course, now to hear about this rise in the cap, the fuel cap, you know, they're really getting at me. And what's upsetting the most is the fact that it's Labour hypocrisy. It's the Labour Party's hypocrisy. We're prepared to bring fracking, or from other countries, from the States, from Europe. We import gas, we import coal, but we're not allowed to do it ourselves. And I mean, it's absolute nonsense. It's doing nothing for the green energy. And believe it or not, I'm all in favour of renewable energy. I've worked in the industry, but carbon capture, no. Carbon offset is a con, and I'm sorry, I will say that. It's, you know, I worked all over Africa with it, in gasification projects. It's, I'm all in favour, but they are just an ancillary part. They are not something that's going to actually provide us with what we need. And we've got all these resources underneath our own ground in the North Sea. And I was really happy at the beginning of this year when the Conservative government, who haven't been particularly good, but they looked as if they were going to actually do something about it and issue new licenses. Labour comes in, and the first thing they do is, after they blocked Rwanda, is they started knocking all this on the head. And the only people that are going to suffer are the people of this country.
No, Philip, you're so right to talk about supply in all of its forms, because it does seem that we've oscillated between different governments, one who's sort of opposed to onshore wind farms, one who's opposed to oil and gas. And when you add it all together, just nothing gets built, nothing gets done, nothing gets generated. The most successful countries around the world aren't those that are just going for one thing or just going for the other. They have a whole energy mix, and they're extracting natural gas, and they're building wind turbines. I mean, Texas... The state of Texas is building more wind turbines than any other state in the United States. You wouldn't think it, but it's because they've got this all-in energy policy, and it keeps energy cheap.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, if they wanted to do something, because I'm not a big believer in climate change because I've studied it for many, many years. But OK, leave that to one side. But if they could just cut 10% of India's output, that would make much more of an impact than the 1% that we do. And where this all started was some years ago, a little Swedish schoolgirl worked out how to skype every Friday afternoon. Sorry, balloons just came up. How to skype every Friday afternoon. And everybody thought it was wonderful. And teachers backed her. And no, yeah, I mean, I wish many, many, many years ago I'd have thought of that. Because, you know, every Friday afternoon off and not get into trouble, not put into detention, brilliant. But
not even not get into trouble, but be paraded round the world, meet global leaders, speak at the UN. I mean, it's the best scam going.
Absolutely. I mean, it is brilliant. But everybody, you know, the useful idiots have listened to her and thought, oh, yes, this is terrible. You know, she must know what she's talking about. She knows nothing about it. Absolutely nothing.
Philip, you sound...
it was the... Sorry,
Philip, you sound like you've got a good sense of humour, you sound like you're coping well, but we have heard from many older viewers this morning who are really struggling financially this year. It is that old cliche of heating or eating. Are you personally worried about how you're going to get through the winter financially?
Well, we're certainly going to be worse off than we were before all this happened. I mean, luckily, I have a wife who I send out to work. And so, you know, I'm a kept man now. But I've got to be honest with you, if it wasn't for that, we really would be in trouble. I mean, and that's it. That's all that saved me. And I feel so sorry. And I know a lot of people who this is really going to impact, you know, who are much older than me or the same age as me. But their only source of income is a pension. And that pension's now been, OK, it was a winter fuel allowance, but we relied on it. I certainly did. And when my boiler went, I thought, you know, I don't believe this. You know.
Well, Phil, good job you got a new boiler now, because from next year, from 2025, all new houses being built, new gas boilers are banned. It's another extraordinary move from the government.
It's going to certainly be more expensive.
Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you.
I mean, and this goes from 30 years ago when I was part of a company. I won't mention it, but it was a very, very big company. And I ran a couple of divisions of it. We started off on a thing called heat pumps, which you may have heard of.
Yeah.
They were doing the development. Well, the guy who was actually running it, he worked for me, and he was one of my senior engineers. And this was the beginning of it. And he said, do you know what? Yeah, it's great in theory, but it's never going to work, and it's going to cost an absolute fortune. That was 33 years ago, he told me that.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us here on Good Afternoon Britain. Appreciate your time.
OK, joining us now to discuss this cold weather further is GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis. Will, it sounds like, well, it's been freezing this morning, and the husband very sensibly left the window open overnight, so you can visit him in hospital. I'll let you know where he's staying. Will, are we expecting more? What's happening with this weather?
Yes, well, it is bitterly cold outside, but it's nice and warm here in this warm hub at Sutton in Ashfield's community centre. There are lots of people who have come in here to keep warm, to have a hot drink and also maybe a biscuit or two. There's a box of confectionery going around as well. But lots of people outside are really worried about how they're going to heat their homes, particularly pensioners who have lost their £300 winter fuel payment when prices are going up, including the Ofgem price cap. I've been speaking to some of those pensioners out on the street in Sutton in Ashfield today.
It could be a case of either heating or eating.
It affects everybody really through everyday living, through your cost of what you've already paid out for, whether it's your council tax, your rent, anything. It just affects everybody. That little few pence or pound, it costs you. So where that goes up, like we get a pay rise, we don't really get a pay rise because that money goes on to energy bills or other bills, so it cripples everybody really.
Every time anything goes wrong now, well, Conservatives left us a $22 billion for anything, not just that.
Yes, well, I told you there were a number of people here getting into the festive spirit as well as trying to keep warm. We've got Jane, who's come here to keep warm, and then Sean's one of the volunteers. Sean, let's just start with you first. What is the purpose of the Warm Hub and how does it help people?
With the fuel prices rising, it's very important to keep the elderly warm and a safe place where they can feel safe and warm.
Yeah, and how has it been responded to? Are people coming in here and using it in Sutton in Ashfield?
Yes, right nowadays a lot of people have come in just to get a cup of tea and keep warm.
Fantastic. Sean, who's a volunteer. Jane, just tell me, you're not a pensioner yet, but how are things right now for you when prices have been high for a number of years and they're going up even more for energy bills?
I think it's been really disappointing of the government taking this money off the people when they did literally promise the people this money. I suffer with hill complaints, and I know quite a few other people do. So for me, I have like breathing difficulties. So this time of year for me is atrocious. So like first thing in the morning and last thing at night, I can't literally breathe. And I know there's a lot of other people what will be feeling that.
Especially because it's so much harder to heat your homes. Jane, thank you so much. And Sean, here at the Warm Hub in Sutton in Ashfield, this is open for most of the year as a community hub, but it might be needed much more now as temperatures plummet below zero.
Well, Will Hollis, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
You know what? I'm so angry about this. I'm really, really angry. Rachel Reeves, £164,000 a year. Those pensioners there, potentially, paying her energy bill in, well, the additional energy claim on her second home. It's just not fair.
It's led to the least jolly elf that I've ever seen.
Was a bit of a miserable elf, has to be said.
Well, my goodness me, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Up next, ASBOs are back with police charged with cracking down on antisocial behaviour. But will those powers actually help officers bring order back to our streets?
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
What about train Wi-Fi? It's so funny the Times did this story because I was on the train yesterday trying to do some work and connecting to the Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. It just doesn't work. It's pathetic. And then I opened the Times and they've done a massive investigation. Loads of different rail routes from north to south.
Was that the James Bond thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that passenger got through, almost got through one episode of James Bond. One James Bond movie in 8 hours.
But you know, it's interesting. We call it train Wi-Fi, but it isn't. It's just really a SIM card on a train, really. So if your own phone's not going to get signal, why would we assume that the train's going to have signal? It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're in Japan or South Korea, whose infrastructure is infinitely better than ours, you're just not going to get signal. You have to download those films way before you get on
There is technology that can help with that. You know, there really is. If they found ways to put it underground, they can get it on ground and get you going. I definitely think, you know, with the price that we're paying for these tickets, they can get the Wi-Fi going. There is technology.
That's why it's so frustrating, isn't
Call
it?
Elon, get a Starlink. Let's go.
If you're a passenger paying hundreds of pounds for a season ticket or whatever you call it, and you know, commute to work every single day, and you're paying all this money, and you can't.
It's so expensive. You'd expect Wi-Fi at the basic. Yeah, exactly.
But it happens with phone signal as well. I'll be walking down London in Park Lane or somewhere else, or down on the south coast. I just don't have phone signal, and I think to myself, what on earth is going on?
Doesn't it feel like 5G's made it worse though?
Yeah.
Because I feel like 4G that didn't happen so much, but 5G just feels like.
Yeah, and then I always get this little E in the top corner of my phone, and I don't get any signal. I think it's got worse over the past couple of years. Yeah, especially with 5G. I agree with that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Now, persistent antisocial behaviour offenders could face up to 2 years in jail as Labour plans to reinstate a form of ASBOs.
These new respect orders, as they're called, are expected to be introduced as part of the government's crime and policing bill next year, in what the government are calling a return to law and order for the UK.
Good luck with that. OK, joining us now for more on this is the CEO of the victim support charity AsHelp, Harvinder Samimbi. Hello, Harvinder, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. What do you make of this announcement? We heard from Yvette Cooper about the new Respect. It's basically a rejigged ASBO. What do you make of it?
I think really looking at our, when we speak to victims on a daily basis, telling us about the devastating impact antisocial behaviour is having on them, and them having to face those offenders on a daily basis, we welcome the Respect orders in the sense of trying to tackle those persistent individuals that are causing antisocial behaviour. Yes, I think in terms of the ASBO, it's similar. It looks like a modernised version of the ASBO. But the difference here, I guess, is the fact that it looked at dealing with the causes of the behaviour. And I think that looking at the prevention element and the enforcement element, I'm hoping that the pilots will prove it to be a success and make that deep difference that we really need to make for those victims experiencing antisocial behaviour on a daily basis.
Of course, it was generally considered sort of a fact that ASBOs didn't particularly work by the end of their time in the last decade, that they almost became a badge of pride for people that were slapped with them. How will these new antisocial behaviour orders, or as we're supposed to call them, respect orders now, be different or avoid that same fate?
Absolutely, I think you're right in terms of the ASBOs. Many people did see that as badge of honour. I worked whilst those were being implemented. But I think the difference here is the fact that it seems to be a quicker response to tackling antisocial behaviour. They come with a power of arrest. It's things like off-road bikes, e-scooters that cause major issues in our communities. And we know that individuals report those kind of incidences on a daily basis. It's dangerous, it causes them great harm. and often perpetrators are warned and warned again. And what the respect orders talks about is immediate justice. It looks like immediate seizing of those bikes. So if it's going to work as it states, I think we'll see a quicker response to some of those issues.
Havinda, don't we already have laws to tackle this sort of behaviour and to tackle the problem use of e-scooters and things like that?
We do have lots of legislation, on the basis of tackling issues. We've got the current tools and powers, but I think what this piece of legislation does is the refreshed approach, in terms of kind of getting there quickly to deal with those issues. And we hope that the pilot, proves to deal with some of those difficult issues, and it's an enhancement to what we already have. And it'd be interesting in terms of the crime and policing bill to see how other pieces of legislation come together to deal with these issues.
That bill coming forward in the early part of next year. Let's see how it all develops. Harvinder Sengbi, really appreciate your time on this issue. Thanks for joining us.
OK, well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, we're going to be joined in the studio by a remarkable young woman, the founder of Survivors of Sexual Violence, to discuss the horrific events of October 7th last year. It won't be an interview you want to miss, although it's going to be a hard one. That's to come after the headlines with Sophie Raver.
A very good afternoon to you. The time is just after 12:30 and these are your latest GB News headlines. Gatwick Airport has confirmed that part of the South Terminal has been evacuated to investigate what they called a security incident. Sussex Police have confirmed that they were called to the airport this morning following a suspected prohibited item being found in some luggage. They also added that an explosive ordnance disposal team had been deployed to the airport as a precaution. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has vowed to continue supporting Ukraine. That's following threats from Putin to strike the UK. The Russian leader confirms the country had tested a new intermediate-range weapon in response to Ukrainian missile strikes earlier this week. He also added that Russia are entitled to strike those countries who were supporting Ukraine. Earlier, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, Kira Rudik, told GB News how important it is for the West to continue their support.
The only thing that Russia is good at is terrorizing peaceful cities with the missiles, and they are not even good in defending their own country. Right now, when they see that their Western support is actually helping Ukraine to defend ourselves against Russian terrorist attacks, he is expanding the threats. The Western leaders understand the value of these threats and understand that the only language that Russia understands is the language of force, the language of power. And this is why we keep asking to continue strengthening Ukraine in our defense against Russia and its terrible aggression.
Police in Laos have detained the manager and owner of a hostel in connection with the death of 6 people who died as a result of suspected methanol poisoning. It was confirmed yesterday that Brit Simone White was one of those to have died as a result of the incident. Those who were poisoned are believed to have been served drinks tainted with methanol. As Storm Bert approaches, many around the UK have experienced freezing temperatures overnight. The storm is set to reach the UK tomorrow, with the Met Office predicting it will bring heavy rain, strong winds and disruptive snow across the weekend. Much of the UK has already experienced snow this week, and as Bert gets closer, the forecaster is now warning of potential flooding, power outages and travel disruption. And the much-anticipated musical Made into a Movie hits our screens today. Expected to be a smash hit at the box office, Wicked is predicted to make between $100 and $200 million during its opening weekend alone. Starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, the film has so far had mixed reviews, but it's still set to have people flocking to cinemas this weekend. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophie Reaper. More from me in the next half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold but icy picture out there for most of us. Showers continuing for some, but actually sunny skies for many ahead of Storm Bert, which is approaching for the weekend. An intensifying area of low pressure, bringing milder, wetter, windier weather to the UK, but on its leading edge, the risk of some significant snow for northern parts of the country. But for the time being, well, mostly the snow is over hills of northern and western Scotland, northwest England, North Wales through the day, rain and sleet showers at lower levels, and actually away from those areas, plenty of dry and bright weather. Feeling pleasant enough with lighter winds compared with recent days and brighter skies, 5 to 7 Celsius. Into the evening, though, we'll see a continued risk of some icy patches as temperatures fall away, and we've got extensive lying snow currently across Scotland, certainly. So clear skies and already below freezing at 5 o'clock. Northern Ireland, likewise, clear spells for a time, icy patches on the roads and pavements. And for England and Wales, a fine evening with the showers tending to fade away, but temperatures are also starting to plummet. And it's going to be a cold, frosty, in many places icy evening, with temperatures falling well below freezing across Scotland and eastern England. But to the west, we've got Storm Bert's rain moving in. Heavy rain for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, falling as snow over the higher parts of mid and North Wales and Northern Ireland, but only temporarily before it turns back to rain. However, a longer spell of snow is expected for Northern England and Scotland. Up to 40 centimetres over hills, 5 to 10 at lower levels, could cause serious disruption during Saturday. But by the end of the day, it's all back to rain, heavy rain at that, risk of flooding across Wales and the southwest, and gales developing widely.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to an hour and a half to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast because of a technical problem. On the M6 in Lancashire, there's a lane closed northbound for emergency repairs between junctions 28 and 29 towards the M65, causing queues. The M62 on Merseyside is blocked eastbound by an accident between junctions 4 and 5 from the Rocket to Highton, with long delays on the A580 as you divert. In Flintshire, the A55 North Wales Expressway is blocked westbound after an accident in snow and ice at junction 30 for the Travellers Inn, causing queues. And through Denbighshire, the A55 partly blocked eastbound by an accident in the snow between junctions 28 and 29 from Rioth to Pontydoolith, causing queues. The M4 in Berkshire is blocked westbound where a car's broken down just before junction 10 at Wokingham. In London, the A12 is closed each way through the Bow Underpass, and train services are suspended between Exeter Central and both Barnstaple and Oakhampton because of a points failure and snow.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 39 minutes past 12. Welcome back.
Yes, and thank you for getting in touch with all your messages. You're really giving us a bit of a laugh this afternoon. Especially the Tom's work of art, which we'll be moving on to.
Getting back to that a little bit later on.
But keep your messages coming in at gbnews.com/your say, because this programme is all about you, despite Tom thinking it's all about him.
Never,
for some reason.
Never knowing.
No. OK, now let's take you back to the start of the horrors of the Israel-Gaza conflict on October the 7th. More than 1,000 people were killed after Hamas attacked Israel.
Around 250 civilians were taken hostage, and many experienced sexual violence during the attacks. So joining us now is someone who is currently helping the victims of Hamas's sexual attacks and advising governments across the world on their approach to such atrocities. The founder of Survivors of Sexual Violence, Yael Scherer. Thanks so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
First of all, you have been, of course, working with the Israeli government ever since the 7th of October. Why has that needed to be gone forward, and what sort of work have you been doing?
I started to work with the Israeli government on the 8th, since I'm an expert in collection of evidence in cases of sexual violence. I have worked on the Ukraine and East Africa before, but I never thought I would have to work in my own country on such war crimes. And now I'm doing a lot of work with foreign governments, and I'm a guest of Stand With Us UK, and I'm doing lectures here in the UK for the next week and meeting with the British Parliament.
Yeah, can you, I mean, obviously October the 7th is something that I don't think any of us will ever forget, the horrors of a group of, certainly, you know, the kibbutz, but the young people dancing at a concert for peace.
Yes.
What happened to those young ladies, those young women there simply having a day out? Can you just explain to me what it meant to you as a survivor yourself of sexual assault, what it means to you when those kind of things happen?
I was just horrified. As I said, I never thought I would have to work on war crimes in my own country. The atrocities have been far too many, and we will never know the complete amount of rape and sexual violence since so much of the crime scenes were set on fire. We only have now, to our knowledge, 4 living survivors who managed to escape being executed. That's a horrible number. And I also want to say that 3 of them are women and 1 is a man. And men were also raped and sexually abused, both in the Nova Music Festival and around in the villages and farms there, which is something that, again, really shocked the Israeli public.
That's so interesting because you don't hear that really at all. But I suppose part of what you've been doing has been building up a database of evidence against a barrage of claims and counterclaims and lies that have gone around the internet. People trying to claim that there was no sexual violence at all on October the 7th.
I find it quite shocking because Hamas brought in their people with body cameras and they documented themselves killing civilians and they documented themselves sexually assaulting people, and they are now saying it in their investigations. We have hundreds of Hamas and Fatah and civilians that were captured and are now held in Israel to stand trial, and they have been questioned and interrogated, and they are admitting it freely. They are not saying that they didn't do it as if it was wrong. They're admitting it. They're saying that they raped Israeli civilians. They're proud of it.
And how does it feel? How do you feel when we've had the marches in London pretty much every weekend? I mean, we had two young women, which I personally found horrifically shocking, with images of the paragliders, that, you know, the actual rapists paragliding in to attack people. The young women doing that, I still can't get my head around it. How do you feel when you see people on these marches, young women, almost proud of what Hamas did on that day?
I can't understand why women or men are advocating for the right of terrorist groups to attack civilians in such a way, murdering, torturing, kidnapping, raping minors, taking babies hostage. It's something that's not logical to me. I simply cannot understand how this promotes peace in the region, how this promotes return of 101 hostages that are still held by Hamas and are not yet released. More than 100 people are still there, including a baby. I don't understand it.
Sexual violence has always been used in war, and it's something so sort of difficult to get your head around because it's something, I suppose, that is used as intimidation, used as control, almost seeing the people that are being abused as less than human. I suppose that almost might go some way to explain how a man was also sexually assaulted, given that we all know in Gaza how they treat homosexuals.
It's not a question about attraction. It's done to humiliate. It's done to dehumanize people. It happened in the Balkan. It happened now in the Ukraine. It happens in the Congo. And Israel-Palestinian conflict has not seen this kind of violence in a widespread number like this before. There have been occasions where we've had it, never in such a way in this conflict. And it's a new occurrence in this conflict in the Middle East. I think it's more of an import, both sexual violence and the cameras, body cameras. It's a new phenomenon.
What do you hope to achieve by talking to the British government?
I think it's closer than they think. I think the British government is no different for me than the German government or the Norwegian government or the Greek government. I spoke to the United Nations and I spoke to the European Union. I think it's closer than we think. I think Europeans think it's not going to happen. It's a method of terror, and it's closer than we think. Body cameras and social media are going to have a rise in these sort of occurrences that are broadcasted. And they do it to gain support, and they did. And it's going to happen again.
Yeah. Yael, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate your time, and good luck with everything you do. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Well, gosh.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Well, coming up, more outrage amongst the farming community after new data shows that the government is spending more than £500 million overseas to support foreign agriculture.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders, and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant, at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. And he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and for the next nearly 400 years had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian states absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded in an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewbs, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dewbs and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 10 minutes to 1. And farmers are once again making their voices heard in opposition to the government's agricultural policies after new data revealed that more than £530 million is being sent to foreign farms. Why does this matter? They're hoping to raise £520 million in that inheritance tax. It's about the same amount.
British farmers, someone make it make sense, and it won't be the Environment Secretary. He has insisted that farmers remain the backbone of Britain, and this is Steve Reed, by the way, announcing £5 billion worth of funding into farming over the next 2 years.
Well, let's now speak to the senior political correspondent at the Daily Express, Christian Calgi, who got this scoop, landed this front page. Calgi, what on earth is all this money going on? £516 million to foreign farmers.
Yeah, so there's 10 different active projects that form part of the annual spend of about £519 million on the environment and agriculture abroad. They include things like renovating farms and forests in Brazil, which is the 11th largest economy in the world. They include helping farmers produce tea for the first time in Rwanda. There's lots of others. There's something about, from farm to table in Africa. The point is that, as I spoke to one outraged farmer yesterday, I think many people, as often is the case with when foreign aid debate enters the round, people think that charity should begin at home, and they think it's absolutely absurd that the government is trying to raise money from our farmers while spending such large amounts every year on foreign farmers.
It really doesn't. I mean, and Steve Reed has announced, every time we discuss this, Steve Reed says, oh, but we're giving £5 million to the farming sector over the next 2 years. But it never actually gives us the detail of how, what and when.
No, I mean, I'm sure they'll come up with something eventually. But across the board, farmers are getting really sick of this. And I think the public smell it as well. You cannot have a situation where the government is so insistent that such a small number of farms and farmers will be affected. And yet every farmer, there are 10,000 that turn up to Whitehall, many other thousands that couldn't make it. They've all looked at the figures. They've spoken to their accountants. They know they're getting clobbered. The government is essentially gaslighting them en masse at the moment, and the public don't buy it either.
Christian, was any impact assessment done on this policy whatsoever? Because it's going to raise £520 million, supposedly, which is spent on the NHS in 1 day.
Yes, exactly. Everything pales in comparison to that bottomless pit of NHS spending. But no, I don't think a wide-scale assessment like that has been done. There was a report in The Guardian last night that the Treasury may now be doing one, just at this point, for small and medium-sized farms. That's something that Downing Street this morning were pushing back on. They were also categorically denying similar reports last night that Treasury officials now looking at carve-outs for the over-80s who obviously won't be able to take advantage of the 7-year gifting rule with inheritance tax.
And then they just get less and less money. But again, that money that they're trying to raise is the same as you've reported that is being sent overseas. Christian, we're going to have to leave it there, but thanks for joining us. This is Good Afternoon Britain, and plenty more to come, including Gatwick updates next.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold but icy picture out there for most of us. Showers continuing for some, but actually sunny skies for many ahead of Storm Bert, which is approaching for the weekend. An intensifying area of low pressure, bringing milder, wetter, windier weather to the UK, but on its leading edge, the risk of some significant snow for northern parts of the country. But for the time being, well, mostly the snow is over hills of northern and western Scotland, northwest England, North Wales through the day, rain and sleet showers at lower levels, and actually away from those areas, plenty of dry and bright weather. Feeling pleasant enough with lighter winds compared with recent days and brighter skies, 5 to 7 Celsius. Into the evening, though, we'll see continued risk of some icy patches as temperatures fall away, and we've got extensive lying snow currently across Scotland, certainly. So clear skies and already below freezing at 5 o'clock. Northern Ireland, likewise, clear spells for a time. Icy patches on the roads and pavements. And for England and Wales, a fine evening with the showers tending to fade away, but temperatures are also starting to plummet. And it's going to be a cold, frosty, in many places icy evening, with temperatures falling well below freezing across Scotland and eastern England. But to the west, we've got Storm Bert's rain moving in. Heavy rain for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, falling as snow over the higher parts of mid and north Wales and Northern Ireland, but only temporarily before it turns back to rain. However, a longer spell of snow is expected for Northern England and Scotland. Up to 40 centimetres over hills, 5 to 10 at lower levels, could cause serious disruption during Saturday, but by the end of the day it's all back to rain, heavy rain at that, risk of flooding across Wales and the southwest, and gales developing widely.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tell us about this film, because it's obviously come from your own experiences.
We wanted to create something for the entertainment industry that wasn't just another kind of dull documentary. I mean, some of them are brilliant, they're very informative, but you kind of leave a bit bewildered and a little bit kind of flat. So we thought, I've got a passion for writing and you've obviously got an unbounded knowledge on the subject. Why don't we create a film with a kind of satirical look on eating disorders?
So this came it's been made 20 years after your own...
It is 20 years.
20 years,
practically to the day.
So Samantha, you suffered with OCD and an eating disorder as well?
Yes.
And that's when your mum became a counsellor, is that right?
A little bit later on, I think we spent a bit of time in the system, and I realised that it wasn't working for us. So I took it on myself to learn as much as I could about the subject.
I call it a tragedy, probably the wrong word, but suffering.
No, it is a tragedy, because mental ill health and eating disorders destroy the lives of not only the sufferers but their families as well.
But you've turned that into something so positive and so
It's amazing, really, that 20 years ago our story was just beginning, and 20 years on we've done what we've done. But I have to say that very little has changed in the system.
I've heard that.
And I think that's what we're passionate about.
Yeah, so...
That was why we wanted to... I mean, I work with families every day, and I see the destruction that eating disorders and other mental illnesses not just bring to the sufferer, but the whole family.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really passions me, because obviously 20 years ago we were there. And I just feel that so much more needs to be done. And I think with eating disorders, there is still a lot of misunderstanding around the subject.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Works of art.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Friday, the 22nd of November. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Dawn Neeson, and I hope you're having a lovely Friday out there. And I hope you're really not trying to travel to Gatwick, because Gatwick Airport's South Terminal has been evacuated following detection of a suspected prohibited item in a passenger's luggage. A bomb disposal team has been deployed to the site, and we'll have the very latest on this breaking story for you.
Elsewhere, the bitter cold is not the only thing biting vulnerable pensioners this winter, as the new energy price cap is going back up, not down. Energy bills are now over 50% higher than pre-COVID levels. How are you coping?
That's the important thing. And a sixth tourist has died following suspected methanol poisoning with a hostel owner in Laos, now in police custody. At least 5 British travellers have reportedly been hospitalised, with another confirmed to one of the 6 dead. We'll have the latest on that throughout the afternoon.
And British farmers are on their last straw after new data reveals how over £500 million is being spent on overseas agricultural schemes. With so much money being spent on foreign agriculture, we ask if that cash could be better spent helping our own farmers. Well, today on the programme, we've got a lot of breaking news stories. We've got stories about airports, we've got stories about the temperature, the price cap, and indeed, bananas. Well, actually, that's just the one banana. Why? Because a banana that looks very much like this banana went for $6.2 million at an auction in New York. They're calling it modern art.
Yes, yes. And here's a piece of modern art I destroyed earlier.
Well, Dawn, I've got an idea.
£6.2 million worth of art.
I've got an idea. If this one banana went for
It's a cunning Tom
went for
plan, isn't it?
£6.2 million.
Shall I be your glamorous...
Hang on. I've got myself some tape here, and let's just see if this will work live on the telly. I'm gonna. This is what we call millions of pounds worth of work. Okay, I can see why it was difficult because I've already torn up this tape, but we're getting there.
Eat your heart out.
Oh, honestly, here's one I didn't make earlier. Here's one I'm making right now, and actually I've got some bananas down here, so we can just take a second one.
We'll be making Tracy Island afterwards. For
honestly,
those of you old
I mean,
enough to
this is a great sort of. Do you think here?
Yeah, it's about having a banana cuddle.
Then they can be friends.
A banana cuddle. Yes.
Okay.
What will you give us?
12.4 million.
I think so, at the very least. Get your bids coming in now.
There you go.
gbnews.com/your say. Keep it polite. Yes.
Each hour we will be adding a further banana, unless any other fruit we should stick to the board.
Yeah, only if you fancy. You could always do a cucumber if you've got a green colour scheme. But you don't even actually. Are you funding human resources again?
I've never been attacked with a banana skin live on television before, Dawn.
Oh, that's a first for everything.
I think the last time I was in a food fight I was about 6 years old.
Well, I can lower the tone, don't we? We will be trying a cucumber maybe later on, or a sausage roll for those who aren't feeling quite as fruity as Tom this afternoon.
Oh, very good. Or what about a vegan sausage roll? I gather they're all the rage, or is that?
Well, just a sausage.
Well, with that, and with all of those different, shapes of fruit...
Let us know your offerings, gbnews.com/your say.
And do you think it's all as silly as that segment just was? Well, gbnews.com/your say is, of course, the way to get in touch. And we'll be on to the much more serious news of the day after your headlines with Sophie Reaper.
Very serious.
Tom, Dawn, thank you very much. The time is just after 1 o'clock, and these are your latest headlines. Gatwick Airport has confirmed that part of the South Terminal has been evacuated in order to investigate what they called a security incident. Sussex Police have confirmed that they were called to the airport this morning following a suspected prohibited item being found in some luggage. They also added that an explosive ordnance disposal team has been deployed to the airport as a precaution. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has vowed to continue supporting Ukraine following threats from Putin to strike the UK. The Russian leader confirms the country had tested a new intermediate-range weapon in response to Ukrainian missile strikes earlier in the week. He also added that Russia are entitled to strike those countries who'd supported Ukraine. Earlier, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, Kira Rudik, told GB News how important it is for the West to continue in their support.
The only thing that Russia is good at is terrorizing peaceful cities with the missiles, and they are not even good in defending their own country. Right now, when they see that their Western support is actually helping Ukraine to defend ourselves against Russian terrorist attacks. He is expanding the threats. The Western leaders understand the value of these threats and understand that the only language that Russia understands is the language of force, the language of power. And this is why we keep asking to continue strengthening Ukraine in our defense against Russia and its terrible aggression.
Sir Keir Starmer has backed the International Criminal Court following the news that they'd issued arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister and the country's former Defence Minister. A spokesperson for the PM has said that the government respected the independence of the ICC, but when asked if Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to the UK, the source said they would not be going into what they called the hypotheticals. Meanwhile, unlike Sir Keir Starmer, the Irish Taoiseach Simon Harris has confirmed that Israel's PM would be arrested if he arrived in Ireland. The Ofgem energy price cap has been announced this morning, and it's bad news for households. The regulator has revealed that as of January 1st, the energy bills of an average household will increase by 1.2%. That's a rise of £21. Given the 10% hike in October and the cuts to pensioner fuel allowance, the news of a further rise this morning will likely come as a blow to many across the UK. Earlier, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey put pressure on the government to support those who need it most.
Energy bills are already too high. The idea they're going up even further is just outrageous. We don't want these energy bills going up any further, and we must bring back the winter fuel payment for pensioners. It's really cold at the moment. I'm really worried that there will be millions of pensioners not putting on their heating because of the reduction and the abolition of the winter fuel payment.
New measures will give police the power to crack down harder on antisocial behaviour. That's as part of the government's attempt to return order to our streets. Breaching a so-called respect order will carry the threat of being arrested and facing a prison sentence, as well as the risk of an unlimited fine. It's believed that this move could signal the return of antisocial behaviour orders, or ASBOs, which were previously in force across the UK and are still used in Scotland.
I mean, it's got to follow through, hasn't it? You know, it's got to be a constant. If you don't keep it constantly going, it's not going to work.
I'm not sure that they will, because people will still go on doing what they want and hope nobody notices.
There's a lot that's going on, and something has to be done. It will sort of make people think again before they do something.
And as Storm Bert approaches, many around the UK have experienced freezing temperatures overnight. The storm is set to reach the UK tomorrow, with the Met Office predicting it will bring heavy rain, strong winds and disruptive snow. Much of the UK has already experienced snow this week, and as Bert gets closer, the forecaster is now warning of potential flooding, power outages and travel disruption. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophie Reaper. It's back to Dawn and Tom.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 1. Now let's head straight back to that breaking news from Gatwick Airport, with the South Terminal evacuated after a prohibited item was found in passengers' luggage.
The airport says it is a precaution while they continue to investigate the incident, with passengers currently unable to enter the terminal.
Well, the Gatwick Express have also confirmed on social media that Gatwick Station will not be served until further notice, causing further chaos for travellers.
Joining us now to discuss this is travel and aviation expert Sally Gethin. Sally, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, this sounds slightly more worrying than someone just sort of like, you know, forgetting to take a bottle of water or a larger bottle of perfume out of their luggage. I mean, do we know any more about what's actually going on yet?
So we don't know what is actually the object that's caused the problem. So it was a suspected prohibited item in luggage that was discovered. And the fact that bomb disposal experts were called suggests that it was something of an explosive device. It really is extremely unusual for a major airport like Gatwick to take such extreme measures and evacuate the terminal in the way that it did. And it's had this ripple effect because...
Oh, Sally, I think we might have just lost your audio there. Let's see if we can re-establish that. But as you say, this is very unusual. The biggest thing that I can remember in terms of something like this happening, actually, it was a flight of mine that was disrupted when the Gatwick drone was stopping flights taking off. That I could understand more, of course, because, I mean, a drone on the over the runway, that's a physical impediment. Whereas with this, I mean, it's incredibly curious that the whole place has been closed down due to a suspicious item, Sally.
Yes, and it does suggest that it is a very serious incident. As well as that, passengers are not able to get out of the airport easily, either home or to some other destination, another airport, for example. So it's not just the rail, but also roads have been closed off as well by the police. So it's causing this logjam of people, and equally there are flights that are diverting and not even arriving at Gatwick Airport because of this.
Sally, do we have any information on when the airport is expected to reopen?
No information, and it's an ongoing incident, and therefore passengers should they should really not make their way to the airport whatsoever. Even people who'd passed through customs and security this morning were turned back through the airport. That's how serious it was. I think the issue with this is, yes, maybe they've identified one suspicious item, but could that signify there are others as well? They can't take any risks whatsoever. So there has to be a complete sweep of the area. And you can imagine going through all those bags and luggage and bags that will have been put onto the plane already, then they have to just investigate absolutely every tiny thing.
Absolute chaos. Sally, what advice are people being given if they are indeed hoping to travel from the airport or maybe meeting people or arriving at the airport? What advice is the airport giving people?
So in the first instance, for passengers, they need to go to their airline, their carrier, because although the airport is passing out information today, mostly on Twitter X, it's actually the airline that is the main contact for passengers. So you have to check with your airline. And of course, those airlines are in touch with the airport. The airport, in turn, is embedded with the police and the security contingent at the moment as well. So behind the scenes, it's a coordinated effort amongst the authorities and the airport, but actually for the passenger, you need to check with your airline. If you're already at the airport, there is some assistance being handed out, like bottles of water, but the police will be in charge, security forces, and you will be required to comply with their instructions.
Now, I suppose this is a nightmare for people planning, but this also could be a nightmare for other airports as well, as people get diverted, try and switch flights last minute. Do we know anything about other airports in and around London? I mean, the knock-on effects could be really significant.
Yes, of course. So it's actually an airport system around London. You have Gatwick and Heathrow, London City Airport. They will be expecting to take the spillover. Airlines that, for example, can't enplane their passengers, they do have an obligation to get their passengers from A to B to their destination. So even if they can't do it today, they will be rerouting them to the other spillover airports, and in some cases possibly further away, such as Manchester, for example, and Stansted.
Sorry, Sally, will people be entitled to any form of compensation if their business flights or their holidays have been interrupted by this?
Well, seeing as this is an incident beyond the control of airlines, airlines are not liable to pay you compensation for this. You are entitled to get a refund and to be rerouted. You will be given a choice whether or not you would prefer to just take a refund and get out of the airport and get away and just forget about your trip, or if you want to reroute and you do need to get to your onbound destination, then your airline has to make arrangements for that, even if it means staying the night. So those are your rights, but not extra compensation on top.
OK. Sally, thank you very much. That's aviation expert Sally Gethin on the breaking news story today about Gatwick Airport being closed down due to a security alert.
Yeah, I have to say, when I was trying to get my flight from Gatwick, when was it, 20 2018, I think it was, with the Gatwick drone. I ended up just not going to my destination at all.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people will be worried about. But as you've just heard Sally say, if you are hoping to travel or you're indeed meeting someone, check with the carrier you're booked with, because that will be the first port of call rather than the airport, which I'm sure is actually going to be snowed under.
Yeah. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's plenty more coming up on today's programme. Indeed, Sir Keir Starmer has backed UK police to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he enters the country. Does this risk escalating tensions in the Middle East? What exactly is the government's stance?
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As Strictly Come Dancing approaches its iconic Blackpool episode, marking halfway through the competition, visually impaired dancers across the country have spoken out about how groundbreaking the casting of Chris McCausland is, who suffers from, if I hope I'm saying this correctly, retinitis pigmentosa, and they have found him particularly inspiring. We've been talking, Sean, about how the casting of Strictly has been inspiring to so many people, but I imagine there'll be lots of people who are watching this at home finding your story of resilience really inspiring, because you've obviously really been through it. Is dancing something that has sort of, you know, helped keep you going through all of those troubles? And what does it mean to you to see casting like this on a show like Strictly Come Dancing?
Like I say, all the things I went through. So those 9 years when I wasn't dancing, you know, I was still dancing in my head and just banging on to other people. Very much not just people with sight loss. You know, I've been a big advocate for people with social isolation. So many people on their own now, social anxiety, especially since COVID. And I just want people to get out. The stuff that I'm doing and all the stuff Christys is obviously doing, it will inspire others. Again, like I say, just not people just with sight loss. I had so many people come up to me in the early days, guys, and now that say, you know what, Shawnee, I've seen you do it, so I'm just going to do it. But you just got to get over yourself, because if you bother to do the maths, you know, because all it is maths and walking. Yeah. You know, that's all it is.
Maths and walking actually sounds quite difficult.
Sean, thank you.
Oh, come on, mate. Can you shout? Can you walk? Crack on.
Sean, you're an inspiration. Thank you, mate, for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. You're a star, and so glad.
Just before I go, I'm just going to say this is Kev. Here's Kev.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, as Brits continue, we froze.
We did.
We
froze. I was trying to be polite, so then you were being polite.
We were being too polite.
Should we just be rude? Should we be a bit more polite?
I was trying to be polite after I threw a banana in your face. I thought it was kind of being polite.
You threw a banana skin in my face.
Well, I was hungry. What can I say?
There you go.
In any case,
Fridays.
OK, you're in the right place to get hot and steamy. So, as Brits continue to face freezing temperatures with Storm Bert. Now, Storm Bert. I mean, come on.
Terrible name.
Storm Bert now.
Sorry to any Bert watching, but I mean, I just don't think it's that thunderous, really.
It's a Muppet. It's named after a Muppet.
I'm sure there are some lovely Berts in the world.
Yeah. Storm Tyson.
But I just think it doesn't have the oomph that you'd expect from a storm.
Storm Doris. Quite like that.
Storm Doris sounds stern.
Yeah, stern.
Yeah.
That's just a weird one, you know that. It's like a schoolmistress that you once had.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't think I actually had Well, anyway, Storm Bert is now approaching western parts of the country. Charities as well as energy companies are warning, of course, that homeowners should brace for power cuts, urging them to stay warm.
It comes as the energy regulator, Ofgem, confirms that household energy bills are to rise again from January the 1st, as it announced a 1.2% increase to its price cap. This is, of course, coupled with 10 million pensioners missing out on their winter fuel payments this year.
Well, joining us to discuss this is the consumer rights campaigner Jonathan Greatorex. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us today. There'll be a lot of people really concerned about a potential triple whammy. Very cold winter, no winter fuel allowance, and now the price cap going up.
Yeah, and justifiably so, really. I mean, when you talk about 1.2%, I mean, it sounds fairly innocuous, but we've got to remember that over the last 4 years, energy prices have risen by 50%. So, you know, this is a real double, triple whammy for everyone, but especially for the pensioners. And I think what we've got is we've got a regulator who really doesn't seem to be regulating.
Why do you say that, Jonathan? What could the regulator be doing differently?
Well, I mean, we're all aware of the huge profits that energy companies have made over the last couple of years. And of course, nobody begrudges anyone making a profit. But when those profits run into billions at the expense of people who are literally freezing in their homes, we have to ask, you know, what is fair and what is unfair, especially with the pensioners who've had this winter fuel allowance taken away from them. You know, the real elephant in the room, of course, is that the government really don't want to act on it because it is quite a nice automatic tax collection vehicle. You know, if you think of VAT at 5%, I think that the average price is going to be £1,738. At 5%, that means the government are going to be getting £86 VAT, and on a business at £5,000 at 20%, that's just over £800 a year in VAT for doing nothing. So we have to look at the fairness now.
Point to make, but those on the other side might well say, Jonathan, that actually profits are necessary for energy companies. They've been told they need to invest in all sorts of things. They need to be building these wind turbines. They need to be rolling out the network. Pylons need to be funded somehow. All the rest of it. What do you say to those claims?
Well, of course, let's not forget that these profits are gross profits. You know, they're not net profits. So they've already put the investment in before these profits are taken out. This is money that is paid out to the shareholders. So you know, they've already had those expenses taken out. This is just pure profit. And of course, we've just got to look at, you know, at what point, you know, is it fair? You know, should Ofgem be saying, OK, fine, listen, we think that a reasonable amount is for you to make X amount per kilowatt hour in profit, and the rest we can use to reduce the price for people. I think that's the way we should be coming at it, really.
OK, well, Jonathan Greatorex, thanks so much for joining us here, consumer rights campaigner. Really appreciate your time and indeed your thoughts.
Joining us now to discuss this is GBNews viewer Janine Moody. Janine, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Janine, it's not good news on any front, is it? Can you tell us a little bit about how it's affecting you?
Well, it's affecting me in so many ways. I have a lot of mental health issues as well as physical issues. And I need to be in a heated home basically 24/7 because it actually affects my medical condition. And I end up literally just confining myself to the bedroom. And I don't put the heating on because of the fear. I suffer a lot from anxiety and depression. And it really is. I mean, the chap before me did talk more about the sort of economical effects on people. But for me as well is that obviously the fear, it's literally just made my condition so much worse. And it's the fear of actually putting the heating on and then not knowing what the bill is going to be and not being able to afford the bill when it comes in. So I literally just stay in one room with a tiny little electric heater, and the rest of the house is just like an iceberg. Literally.
So sorry to hear that, Janine. It sounds like your story is replicated across the country. We've spoken to people on this channel of people feeling like they can't live.
No. It shouldn't be like this.
Oh,
It really shouldn't. And, like this is, I have worked all my life and paid into the taxes. I'm unable to work now. I've actually been on life support 5 times with taking overdoses. Thankfully now I'm sort of, past that. That was in June 2023, but it just, and I live alone, and I've just got mum who's 92, and I can see, the anxiety in her as well, because we're just from a working class, background. Mum worked in like a stitching factory all her life. She doesn't qualify for pension credit. I think she's about £10 over, qualifying for it. And you can see the anxiety. She says, I'm not putting the heating on, she says, because I can't, I don't want to like run up a bill just the same as me. And I just think, for a country that's supposed to be like in the Western world and whatever all, it's just terrifying that this is what it's coming to, and it's hitting us left, right and centre.
Janine.
I just don't know what to do. I literally don't.
Janine, lovely, have you got any support? Have you tried talking to some of the Help the Aged charities out there? They can offer you not only advice but also some mental health support as well, and maybe talk you through what you can do to make your situation better.
See, I've sort of been through the whole, as I call them, talking therapies, and they work while you're sort of in the therapy session. But then you've got to come out and face things, in the world as such. And it's just the anxiety of the bills coming in, and then I just don't open them. I literally don't open them. And it's just living in fear, just literally. It's just like getting on a hamster wheel, a cycle of fear and anxiety. And the fact this Labour government coming in, it's just been horrific. And we're in the early days of it.
Janine, Janine, how do you feel about your future now, the way things are going?
I just don't know. And I suffer. I don't sleep at night either. So you're talking maybe 2 hours sleep. And I'm in the house 24/7 and need the heat. It's not like I can just go out, and sit in a shopping mall or wherever. I am literally stuck in the house because I suffer from agoraphobia and everything as well.
Well, Janine, I know that our heart goes out to you. The whole audience are on your side. Please do stay in touch with us here at GB News.
Thank you as well.
Because we want to follow you. We want to follow your story because I know you speak for so many people up and down the country.
We'll keep in touch.
And this channel, by the way, is incredible. I've been watching it now for 2 or 3 years, and it just helps me mentally to feel like, it's almost like a friend,
Oh, brilliant. So, God bless you, Janine. Take care, and we'll keep in touch with you. Thank you very much, Janine.
That's lovely.
It's heartbreaking. And Janine isn't alone.
No.
We really want to hear your stories, and we will be passing them on to the people that should be listening to you that aren't. So gbnews.com/your say. If you are struggling like Janine, let us know and we will do everything we can to help you. And there are organisations out there that can help you as well. Many like Help the Aged organisations who will be able to give you not just moral support, but also some good advice on what you can do to cut your bills down and maybe help yourself a little bit as well. But please do get in touch because we do genuinely care, really care. And it's upsetting. My mum's in a similar boat, and it's heartbreaking that, people have worked all their lives are in that situation.
And It's so frustrating because it doesn't have to be this way. There are countries around the world where energy is half the price it is in this country. Half the price.
You know what, Tom? This is another thing where Rachel from Accounts hasn't done the maths properly. Because if the 850 pensioners out there who could claim for pension credit,
they don't make any money.
It would wipe out all the money that Rachel had to make.
We've got to move on because Sir Keir Starmer has backed the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. But mixed reports are now emerging from Downing Street on whether or not the UK would enforce that warrant if Benjamin Netanyahu were to step foot on UK soil.
This is what the Home Secretary had to say to Sky News this morning.
The UK is a signatory of the International Criminal Court, so I just wanted to ask if you can confirm that he would be arrested if he came to the UK.
Well, that's not a matter for me as Home Secretary. The International Criminal Court is, of course, independent, and we respect its independence and the role that it has to play.
Yeah, did you get that? Well, let's speak to our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. She's in Westminster for us, because, Olivia, a lot of people are finding it very hard to understand what the government's position actually is here.
Well, absolutely. It feels as though Keir Starmer is treading a very, very thin diplomatic tightrope and is at risk of making pretty much everyone unhappy. Last night, his spokesman said that that the UK would respect the ICC's judgment, and obviously the logical progression from there is that if they respect the ICC's judgment, then the UK should issue a domestic arrest warrant, which is how the process works, and then if Benjamin Netanyahu were to come to the UK, he would automatically be arrested. Then this morning, Yvette Cooper clouded the waters a bit, as you heard there, by saying that it wouldn't be up to her as Home Secretary to decide whether or not Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested. Well, perhaps very technically that could be true. It's not clear whether it would be down to the Home Secretary or Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, to put out that domestic warrant that could lead to his arrest. But obviously the Home Secretary would be very, very involved in that decision. So that was a little bit disingenuous of her. It feels as though the pair of them don't really want to answer the question. Well, why is that? There are so many people they risk angering here. On the one hand, there are those on the left of the Labour Party who say that if Keir Starmer were to ignore that warrant, and if he were to refuse to enforce it, i.e. not arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came to the UK, then that would be a betrayal of Palestine. It would, they say that he would be cozying up far too much to Israel. Jeremy Corbyn, who was obviously once Labour leader, now sits as an independent MP, has already made his view very, very clear to Keir Starmer. But on the other hand, if he were to enforce it, if he were to say that he would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came to the UK, he would risk really, really angering the US. The US doesn't sign up to the jurisdiction of the ICC, and Joe Biden has already said that he doesn't like that they have issued this warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu's arrest. Donald Trump would feel the same about it. And obviously the relationship between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer is already strained. Keir Starmer doesn't want to risk straining that even further. So at the moment, it feels as though the British government don't really want to come down on either side. They want to obfuscate. They want to make it as muddy and difficult as possible in the hope that Benjamin Netanyahu has no immediate plans to visit the UK. Perhaps this will all turn out to be theoretical, hypothetical, and will just melt away.
Oh, goodness me, what a fudge. What a fudge. Olivia Utley, thanks indeed for joining us there live from Westminster.
I'm sorry, Yvette Cooper, but the ICC has no power to enforce that, by the way. It is down to the British government.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Up next, we'll get the very latest on the death toll in Laos after another tourist dies from a suspected methanol poisoning. First, though, it's your headlines with Sophie Reaper.
A very good afternoon to you. The time is just after 1:30, and these are your latest headlines. Gatwick Airport has confirmed that part of the South Terminal has been evacuated in order to investigate what they called a security incident. Sussex Police have confirmed that they were called to the airport this morning following a suspected prohibited item being found in some luggage. They also added that an explosive ordnance disposal team had been deployed to the airport as a precaution. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has vowed to continue supporting Ukraine following threats from Putin to strike the UK. The Russian leader confirmed the country had tested a new range weapon in response to the Ukrainian missile strikes earlier in the week. He also added that Russia are entitled to strike those countries who'd supported Ukraine. Earlier this week, we saw farmers take to the streets of London to protest against the government's changes on inheritance tax. Victoria Atkins, the Shadow Environment Secretary, sat down with GB News political editor Christopher Hope to talk about the extreme pressure facing our farmers.
So worrying about this is that this literally rips the rug out up from under the feet of farmers who for generations have done nothing more than do the right thing, farm their land, bring their children up to understand how to run a farm, how to work with livestock, how to run an arable farm or so on. And suddenly this announcement has been made. These people are working 365 days a year. It is a hard way of life. They do it because they love it. They want to feed us, and so putting this extra worry on their shoulders and the threat of bankruptcy for many of them it's become an unbearable pressure.
And you can watch and listen to the full interview on Chopper's Political Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or gbnews.com. A baby orangutan who was rejected by her mother has been given a second chance. Kiwi, the Bornean orangutan, was born at a Spanish conservation centre in Alicante, but has now travelled first class, no less, across the Channel in order to start a new life at a Dorset monkey sanctuary. For now, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Sophie Reaper. More from me in the next half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
But first, here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2529 and €1.2017 euros. The price of gold is £2,160.85 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,203.80 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold but icy picture out there for most of us. Showers continuing for some, but actually sunny skies for many ahead of Storm Bert, which is approaching for the weekend. An intensifying area of low pressure, bringing milder, wetter, windier weather to the UK, but on its leading edge, the risk of some significant snow for northern parts of the country. But for the time being, well, mostly the snow is over hills of northern and western Scotland, northwest England, North Wales through the day, rain and sleet showers at lower levels, and actually away from those areas, plenty of dry and bright weather. Feeling pleasant enough with lighter winds compared with recent days and brighter skies, 5 to 7 Celsius. Into the evening, though, we'll see continued risk of some icy patches as temperatures fall away, and we've got extensive lying snow currently across Scotland, certainly. So clear skies and already below freezing at 5 o'clock. Northern Ireland, likewise, clear spells for a time, icy patches on the roads and pavements. And for England and Wales, a fine evening with the showers tending to fade away, but temperatures are also starting to plummet. And it's going to be a cold, frosty, in many places icy evening, with temperatures falling well below freezing across Scotland and eastern England. But to the west, we've got Storm Bert's rain moving in. Heavy rain for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, falling as snow over the higher parts of mid and North Wales and Northern Ireland, but only temporarily before it turns back to rain. However, a longer spell of snow is expected for Northern England and Scotland. Up to 40 centimetres over hills, 5 to 10 at lower levels, could cause serious disruption during Saturday. But by the end of the day, it's all back to rain, heavy rain at that, risk of flooding across Wales and the southwest, and gales developing widely.
The latest GB News travel.
Queue in traffic for the eastbound side of the M62 as it's closed from junction 4 The Rocket through to junction 5 for Huyton. It's closed due to an accident. Northbound on the M6, the exit slip road is blocked at junction 14 for Stafford North to a broken down vehicle, traffic looking slow. It has cleared though northbound on the M1, an earlier broken down vehicle between Milton Keynes at 14 and Northampton at 15 has cleared and all lanes have reopened. That's the same for the westbound side of the M4. Traffic has returned to normal following an earlier broken down vehicle just before junction 10. In Wales, in Caerphilly, Ystrad Mynach, the southbound side of the A469, that's closed to an accident from the Dufferin Industrial Estate through to the Llanbradach roundabout. For now, that's your very latest travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Okay, a 19-year-old Australian tourist has become the 6th person to die from suspected alcohol poisoning in the tourist town of Vang Vieng in Laos.
Well, Holly Bowles died after falling ill at the Nana backpacker hostel, which previously said it had given out free shots to around 100 guests on the 12th of November.
Her friend Bianca Jones, as well as a British lawyer, have also been confirmed dead from similar circumstances.
Well, joining us now is someone who has been to this very hostel and previously promoted it as somewhere to stay on her travel blogging account, Steph Dawson. Steph, I mean, this is a tragic event. Obviously, we don't know the full details, but more people are in hospital, people are dying. You must feel pretty shocked having stayed there yourself.
I mean, I'm literally completely shocked right now. Like, I literally did a whole reel on Instagram promoting this kind of hostel as like a recommendation on where to stay. Like, when I was there, it was like the go-to hostel. It was the recommendation of where to go. So I'm just shocked right now.
And how popular is it? I mean, it looks, on the footage that you shot before all this happened, it looks, you know, as hostels go, quite a nice place to stay.
Yeah, that was the most popular hostel in Vang Vieng in the area. They even have another Nana backpackers in the capital of Laos as well. And that was literally like where every backpacker goes. Like, it's cheap, it's sociable, and as you say, they offer that free alcohol, and that's between 7 and 9 p.m.
And that free alcohol is presumably what has been the source of this suspected mass poisoning now.
Yeah, and they do that. So they do free vodka and free rum between 7 and 9 every night.
Does it seem that sort of all of the social activities, I mean, I saw in your video, tipsy tubing was something that they were promoting as these, it sort of all revolves around alcohol almost?
Yeah, and because it's so cheap, like, honestly, that, like, you can go down the shop kind of down the road and you can honestly buy a bottle of vodka for £1.60. Like, it is so cheap out there, but the alcohol, like, it tastes cheap. But because everyone's doing it, like, everyone that goes there does the free alcohol, so everyone thinks it's fine, you know, because everyone does it and then everyone recommends it to kind of other people. And I think that's why it's so shocking, because it's the most popular hostel in that area. Like, I'm shocked.
The hostel manager and bartender who served the shots has denied that it was the free shots and the vodka that made his guests feel ill. And he points out that there are plenty of people that were enjoying these free shots who haven't been ill. So, I mean, there is some doubt about what has actually happened. But you actually, methanol is a toxic alcohol used industrially as a solvent, pesticide and fuel source. I mean, have you heard of anything? I mean, you're a travel blogger, you've travelled extensively, you've stayed in hostels. Have you ever heard of anything else like this happening anywhere else, Steph?
I mean, I've heard of kind of like dodgy stuff kind of all around, like, kind of Southeast Asia, where, like, you know, like, people are getting ill from cheap alcohol. And I think it's just because, you know, like, when you taste it, it tastes, you know, cheap. Like, it tastes, you know, like petrol, if you know what I mean. So I'm shocked because of how popular this hostel is, but, you know, sometimes I kind of think, you know, how long, you know, until this actually happened, something like this.
I suppose there's the worry that this could be some freak accident, some people just using the cheapest possible materials to make the biggest profits on, as you say, bottles of vodka that you could buy for a little over £1. But there'll also be people who think, hang on, poisoning young girls, is there something more sinister going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in shock. But the thing is, like, when they're serving it, you know, they're just serving it to everyone, and it's just vodka, rum, like, everyone goes. But honestly, about whether there's something more sinister, I mean, who knows? Because there's a lot of bars around there that a lot of backpackers go to, but I don't know. I'm really shocked at it.
Steph, just one final question, Steph. What advice would you give anyone now that is considering going backpacking themselves, or any parents or grandparents watching who are about to wave youngsters off to go backpacking?
I would say overall you're safe. Trust your instincts. But I think we have to kind of wait until this investigation's kind of over before we kind of start, you know, blaming the hostel. So I think it's a waiting game, but I would say trust your instincts, check reviews on hostels before you book it. Reviews are like kind of a must. And then if you're not into partying, you don't want to do shots, don't stay at a hostel that kind of does these free shots, or don't even kind of take the free alcohol at all.
Yeah, okay. Steph Dawson, thank you very much for joining us, and please stay safe. And if you are going travelling, or if you've got a loved one travelling, please, you know, keep in touch, make sure they're safe.
Now, we must say that the hotel manager involved has been taken in for questioning by the police. However, no charges have been filed.
Exactly. OK, and this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Now, with Storm Bert bringing snow and rain this weekend, we hear from the Met Office on what other effects the approaching weather could have on western parts of the UK. Stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariapin. Really good
morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution, and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment, and climate change. So he founded the organisation, and I joined him with three goals, really: education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 48 minutes past 1. And you guessed it, freezing temperatures, if you haven't noticed, will of course hit the UK overnight, as if it hasn't been cold enough. All this as Storm Bert bullies his way through the UK.
The Met Office is predicting it will bring heavy rain, strong winds and disruptive snow across the weekend. There's also warnings for potential flooding, power outages and travel disruption.
Oh, good.
Just stay home, you'll die, basically. I'm joking. Joining us now is Alex Deakin, a Met Office meteorologist. Alex, we are holding you personally responsible for Storm Bert. What's going on? Why Storm Bert? I mean, come on, Storm Tyson at the very least, we think. And
Poseidon.
Poseidon. Yeah, classical. What's going on with the weather? Is this normal for this time of year, or what can we expect?
Yeah, I mean, we've had cold spells before in November. It's pretty unusual because we've had many Novembers that have been quite mild recently. So yes, this cold spell is a bit of a shock. It's unusual to have this much snow, I guess, at this stage in the year, but it has happened in the past, happening less frequently, of course, now with our changing climate. It's Bert because it's our second named storm of the year, so we go in alphabetical order. So we had A, now we're on B, so that's why it's Bert. It'll take a while before we get to Tyson or Poseidon, for that matter. But yeah, it's been cold. It's been a month of contrast, right? We had such a dry, drab start to November, and now it's turned cold, and now it's turning wet and windy, and Storm Bert is certainly going to mix things up this weekend.
Right, because Storm Bert might actually, conversely, be a bit warmer than the temperatures that we've experienced the last few days, but with Bert, he'll bring all of that wind and that rain that will make things really rather nasty.
Yeah, this is a classic Atlantic weather system. So it's coming in from the Atlantic, which is actually quite warm. So, yeah, it's bringing in much, much milder air. So that's one problem, actually, because it's been so cold. It's going to be a shock to the system. It's also going to drop a lot of snow as it hits the cold air. But then that's going to melt. So the combination of the snow could cause some problems. The snow melt could cause some problems. It's bringing tropical air. So that means heavy, heavy rain. That's another issue. And then you've got the winds also. So it's kind of a multi-hazard event, this storm system coming in. Snow melt, flooding, and the strong winds. But the good news is, if you're not like the cold, it will at least turn a lot milder. It's going to be crazy, the jump in temperatures we see. Some places will be up to 15 degrees by Saturday afternoon, having been, well below freezing first thing this morning. So a big jump in temperatures on the way as well.
Where's the worst part of the country going to be affected, Alex?
Well, it depends what you mean by worse, really, because there's different facets, different parts. So the snow is northern England and Scotland. We've got an amber warning in parts of Scotland for the snow. The wind is mostly in the west, but also parts of the east coast. The rain is chiefly Wales and southwest England, and the strongest winds are going to be, as I say, on the west coast, but also on the south coast as well, coming in later on Sunday. So it really is a multifaceted feature, this Storm Bert, and it really does depend. I point you to the Met Office website for all the details of all the warnings, because there's loads of them. So you can go in there and see which, whether you'll be affected, your part of the UK, and by which part. Will it be the rain or will it be the snow, if you go to the Met Office website?
Goodness me, it sounds like an absolute cacophony of different elements. So you've got snow, wind, rain, melting snow, potential flooding, I would suppose, in some areas. Yeah. How can people best prepare themselves?
Well, I think stay up to date with the forecast. This is a storm system that hasn't even developed yet. It's going to hit within 24 hours, but it's still out in the Atlantic, and it could subtly shift either a little bit further north or further south. So keep up to date with the forecast. Really think about whether you need to travel tomorrow, and particularly those Trans-Pennine routes tomorrow. I know it's Saturday, people want to get out, people want to do stuff, but really think about that. Certainly don't want to be going up in the mountains across northern England and Scotland tomorrow. Also, check in on your neighbours, that kind of stuff, particularly if it's snowing heavily where you are. And just, be prepared. A really good bit of advice is know where your stop tap is. Because particularly in cold weather like this, and if it suddenly jumps up, that can have impacts on pipes bursting. So know where your stop tap is, so you can turn it off if you do get a burst pipe in your house. There's, again, lots of advice on the Met's website about how to prepare for winter weather.
OK, Alex Deakin, I'm going to give you an opportunity to redeem yourself now. And I know you all love this sort of thing. Are we going to have a white Christmas?
Oh, well, it's a little early to say about that. What we see in November has very little impact on November. But, of course, we do our weather forecast for you guys on GB News. So if you stay tuned to GB News, we'll be the first to tell you, but maybe a little closer to the time.
Absolutely marvellous answer. Alex Deakin, thanks so much for joining us live from the Met Office. Yeah. Thanks indeed.
I'm not sure that's helping Santa much. Santa probably needs to know now. He needs to know what tyres to get on his sleigh.
I think Santa's quite used to snow, to be fair. And also, I'm kicking myself for calling him Santa. It's Father Christmas.
What's wrong with Santa?
American.
So? We go to America as well. He's a busy man.
I call him Father Christmas in this
country. I thought of a bit of B. Storm Brutus.
Brutus is brilliant. I like how it's sort of sequential and alphabetical, but it does mean that sort of, the big sort of, wind, rain, thunder, all the rest of it, it's going to be a while until we get to Zeus.
Yeah. Do you think we'll have a Storm Tom in between?
Oh, I hope so. So, I don't know. Is it an honour to have a storm named after you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, marvellous.
Yeah, especially if it's a proper storm.
Well, much more stormy news to come on GB News this afternoon, including the closure of Gatwick. Don't go anywhere.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Plenty of weather to talk about for this weekend, but for the rest of today, at least it's bright, it's dry, there's some sunshine. It is still cold with icy patches, and then Storm Bert starts to move in overnight. Now that's going to bring a lot of mild air, some wet and windy weather, but as it clashes with the cold air, some parts of the UK will see significant snowfall. Ahead of that, there are some wintry showers into the northwest of Scotland, northwest England. They fade away overnight with clear spells at first, at least in the east and the north. It's going to be chilly with temperatures dipping below freezing. Then the rain arrives, falling as snow for a time for parts of Northern Ireland and mid to North Wales. Doesn't last. The mild air rushes in, along with strengthening winds, and as a result, it's going to turn back to rain for Northern Ireland and Wales. But it's a different story for Scotland and Northern Ireland. As that band of rain bumps into the cold air, we can expect 2 to 4 hours of heavy snow, accumulating very quickly through the morning, 5 to 10 centimetres at lower levels across parts of northern England into central and southern Scotland, 20 to 40 centimetres over hills with blizzards and ice accretion as well. So really hazardous conditions across northern England and Scotland throughout Saturday morning into early afternoon. Before then, the mild air arrives along with a strengthening wind, widespread gales, especially in the west, and the snow turns back to rain for northern England and Scotland with a rapid thaw setting in. So we might start the day with snow, but we end the day with temperatures in the double figures, even 15 Celsius in the southwest, but with heavy rain and risk of flooding across Wales and the southwest with that rain accumulating through Saturday and into Sunday. More than 100 millimetres possible over higher parts of South Wales and Dartmoor. Then a quieter spell at first next week. After a very mild Sunday, temperatures return closer to average.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewbs, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dewbs and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewbs and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dewbs and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Friday, the 22nd of November. I'm Dawn Neeson.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Gatwick Airport's South Terminal has been evacuated following the detection of a suspected prohibited item in a passenger's luggage. A bomb disposal team has been deployed to the site and will have the very latest across the programme.
And the bitter cold is not the only thing biting vulnerable pensioners this winter, as the new energy price cap is going back up, not down. Energy bills are now over 50% higher than pre-COVID levels, and we want to know how you're coping.
Elsewhere, the government has brought back antisocial behaviour orders as part of its crackdown on public disorder. Offenders could be locked up for 2 years if found guilty of persistent street drinking, drug use or harassment. Will this clean up the UK, or is it yet another power for the police that could be misused?
And British farmers are on their last straw after new data reveals how over £500 million is being spent on, overseas agricultural schemes. With so much money being spent on foreign agriculture, can we ask if that cash could be better spent protecting our own farms?
That's my favourite part of the programme.
Go on, get it out, Tom. I know you want to.
What's that supposed to mean? Here we go. Now, for those just tuning in, throughout the programme, we've been exploring modern art.
Modern art.
Because in New York this week, a piece of modern art not unlike this one sold for $6.2 million. Mm-hmm. Well, that was just the single banana. Yeah. So last hour we added a second banana in the hope that we could get it to $12.4 million. That's how the maths works.
We've had a bid come flooding in for a fiver.
A fiver?
Yeah.
Someone would actually pay a fiver for this.
Well, how much did you spend on the bananas, Tom? Bananas aren't cheap these days.
Less than a fiver.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But hang on, Dawn, hold this.
OK.
Because this is the third hour of our programme now, and, like magic, I can conjure up a third banana. But crucially, it's not just the banana, it's also the duct tape. And let's see if we can make something of it that is of greater artistic value. Because I think...
Where are you going to put this one, Tom?
I've got an idea, actually.
OK.
I wonder if we could sort of do...
OK.
How's that?
Oh, it's like a smiley face, kind
right.
of.
It's almost like a face.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was sort of aiming for.
Yes, right, OK.
Yeah.
It's a smiley face with duct tape over the mouth.
I think it's evocative of so many things.
Do you want to tell us more about your weekends, Tom? Bananas, duct tape.
Wish. I think this is actually a more profound piece of art than a single banana taped to a board.
Oh, look, that's the actual one.
Mine's better.
Yours is much better, and you've got
barely see it there.
Smaller board, it has to be said.
OK, wow. Don't take the mick out of my board.
No.
It's small but perfectly formed.
It's a lovely board.
It's how you use it that matters.
So I've heard. But the problem with this piece of art is you spend that $6.2 million.
Yeah.
You don't actually get the banana.
No, you just get a little certificate saying you have the right to slap a banana against your wall. I think this is better. This You look at this, you can see so many things. You can see sort of repression, you could see happiness, you could see fruit. I mean, there's so much to see in there. I think I should go into modern art.
I think you should. I think you've described that perfectly. What's that programme where they analyse how much modern art is actually worth and whether it's fake or fiction or something?
It's called Good Afternoon Britain on
right,
GBNews.
Yes, exactly that one. Well, we've just nailed that one.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, get your bids in. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in our auction.
You can do it with other fruits and vegetables if you like as well. Cucumbers are working quite good, evidently.
Say for yourself. Well, gbnews.com, as we say, is the way to get involved, /your say. Many more stories to come, however, after your very latest news headlines with Sophie Reaper.
Tom, Dawn, thank you very much. Let's take a look at your top stories for this hour. Gatwick Airport has confirmed that part of the South Terminal has been evacuated to investigate what they called a security incident. Sussex Police has confirmed that they were called to the airport this morning following a suspected prohibited item being found in some luggage. They also added that an explosive ordnance disposal team had been deployed to the airport as a precaution. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has vowed to continue supporting Ukraine. That's following threats from Putin to strike the UK. The Russian leader confirmed the country had tested a new intermediate-range weapon in response to Ukrainian missile strikes earlier in the week. He also added that Russia are entitled to strike those countries who supported Ukraine. Earlier, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, Kira Rudik, told GB News how important it is for the West to continue their support.
The only thing that Russia is good at is terrorizing peaceful cities with the missiles, and they are not even good in defending their own country. Right now, when they see that the Western support is actually helping Ukraine to defend ourselves against Russian terrorist attacks, he is expanding the threats. The Western leaders understand the value of these threats and understand that the only language that Russia understands is the language of force, the language of power. And this is why we keep asking to continue strengthening Ukraine in our defense against Russia and its terrible aggression.
Police in Laos have detained the manager and owner of a hostel in connection with the death of 6 people. It was confirmed yesterday that British citizen Simone White was one of those to have died as a result of the incident. Those who were poisoned are believed to have been served drinks tainted with methanol. Earlier, one former guest at the hostel told GB News how shocked she is by this incident.
I'm shocked because of how popular this hostel is, but you know, sometimes I kind of think, you know, how long, you know, until this actually happened, something like this. And that was literally like where every backpacker goes. Like, it's cheap, it's sociable, and as you say, they offer that free alcohol, and that's between 7 and 9 p.m. They're just serving it to everyone, and it's just vodka, rum, like everyone goes.
The Ofgem energy price cap has been announced this morning, and it's bad news for households. The regulator has revealed that as of January 1st, the energy bills of an average household will increase by 1.2%. That's a rise of £21. Given the 10% hike in October and the cuts to pensioner fuel allowance, the news of a further rise this morning will likely come as a blow to many across the UK. Earlier, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey put pressure on the government to support those who need it most.
Energy bills are already too high. The idea they're going up even further is just outrageous. We don't want these energy bills going up any further, and we must bring back the winter fuel payment for pensioners. It's really cold at the moment. I'm really worried that there will be millions of pensioners not putting on their heating because of the reduction and the abolition of the winter fuel payment.
Judges at a specialist tribunal have ruled that more than 300 people affected by the arena bombing in Manchester cannot continue their legal action against MI5. Last year's public inquiry reports found MI5 had missed a significant chance to take action that may have prevented the attack. As a result, some survivors and people bereaved by the attack brought a case to the Investigatory Powers Tribunal against MI5. But in a ruling today, it was decided that the cases could not proceed as they were brought too late. And as Storm Bert approaches, many around the UK have experienced freezing temperatures overnight. The storm is set to reach the UK tomorrow, with the Met Office predicting it will bring heavy rain, strong winds and disruptive snow. Much of the UK has already experienced snow this week, and as Bert gets closer, the forecaster is now warning of potential flooding, power outages and travel disruption. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophie Reaper. More from me in the next half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 2.
Thank you very much, Sophie, for that wonderful news headline. I just got to read this one message out. It's making me laugh. So this is with Banana Gate, obviously. Carol M, hi Carol, says, auction it for charity. Look, I really don't think you should call Tom it, by the way. And I'm not sure I would get that much money for him. However, flood of bets coming in for the banana, so keep them coming. gbnews.com/your say.
Well, I am a charity case in any sense. Let's get back to that breaking news from Gatwick Airport. South Terminal evacuated after a prohibitive item was found in a passenger's luggage.
The airport says it is a precaution while they continue to investigate the incident with passengers currently unable to enter the terminal.
Well, the Gatwick Express has also confirmed on social media that Gatwick station will not be served until further notice, causing more chaos for travellers.
OK, joining us now to discuss this, it's a breaking news story, so we're keeping you up to date all afternoon, is CEO of Business Travel Association, Clive Ratton. Clive, this does sound quite serious. It's been going on most of the day now. We haven't had any further information about what the suspicious package is or when the airport is going to indeed open again. What do you make of this story? It does sound quite serious, doesn't it?
Well, clearly it is. I mean, this is really important that the safety and security of passengers and the airport staff and the airline crew is first. So the fact that it's been going on for this long is really interesting. I mean, I'm unsure from seeing the news where this item of baggage was spotted. I'm assuming it's in the hold baggage as it's gone through, rather than in the hand baggage area. So, you know, there's a lot to be done around that. If they found the item, they need to check whether there's other items attached to that passenger, and probably trying to source the passenger who that luggage belongs to, which is taking the time. But it is you know, going on for quite some time. So there's clearly a lot of work going on in the background to make the airport safe.
Really does bring back memories of when Gatwick closed due to a mysterious drone that I'm not sure we ever got to the bottom of about 5 years ago, perhaps longer. But this seems to be different in the sense that this is something within the airport. Presumably authorities know what they're dealing with here, and yet they're not giving any information to the public. I mean, that leads to speculation, surely.
I think it does, but you know, equally, if they're still investigating it, then there's not much news to give out other than to give advice to passengers around arriving at the airport, or if you're already at the airport, what to do. I mean, looking at the departures, aircraft are getting away, and of course, the North Terminal is operating normally, and the departure board at Gatwick for the South Terminal is actually showing flights due to depart with a couple of hours delay, up to 4 hours delay. So it's one of those classic rolling situations where everybody is not quite sure what's going on, and giving out information sometimes can create more difficulty than actually remaining quiet until they know exactly what the situation is. I mean, the airports are well versed in scenarios such as this, as are the airlines, to deal with this situation and recover the situation quickly. So I think we just have to leave it in the hands of those security services who know what they're doing. And as soon as they get information, I'm sure they will be sharing it, and we'll be getting passengers back on their way again.
Clive, what effect is this going to have on other airports around the UK? Will flights be diverted?
It's likely some are diverted, but again, looking at the boards, aircraft are coming in. I've seen that Gatwick are putting people over to the North Terminal to come through customs and border force if they were due to arrive in the South Terminal. I mean, at all cost, we will try, as the industry will try and stop diverting flights, because the knock-on effect to passengers further later in the day flying, and even in tomorrow. So I think there's not an issue with the airport being closed with the runway, as Tom was mentioning about the drone before. Aircraft can still get in and are getting out, which also means the gates are not getting full, so the aircraft can still find places to park. up. So I think there may be some diversion. There's a couple this morning that I saw, but the rest, I think they're going to try and get them into Gatwick so we can recover the situation as quickly as possible for those passengers.
And Clive, what advice would you give to passengers hoping to travel from Gatwick, or indeed going to meet people travelling into Gatwick this afternoon?
Well, it's most important that you check with your airline, or if you're a passenger and you book through a travel agent like one of our members, is call your travel agent or your business travel agent to find out what's going on. The airport are just dealing with the situation right now, so it's really critical that you don't go unless you've been told to go, if that makes sense. So it's really just get informed as best you can, but equally sometimes that can be tricky getting through on the phone. But please, I just implore people just to be patient and make sure you get as much information before you make a decision on what to do.
OK, great advice there. Clive Ratton, CEO of the Business Travel Association. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Right, OK, as Brits continue to face freezing temperatures with Storm Bert battering western parts of the country, charities and energy companies are now warning homeowners to brace for power cuts and to stay warm.
Well, this all comes as energy regulator Ofgem confirmed household energy bills are set to rise again from the 1st of January, as it announced a 1.2% increase in its price cap. This is coupled with the 10 million pensioners who are going to miss out on winter fuel payments this year.
Someone make it make sense. Joining us now to discuss this cold weather further is GB News East Midlands reporter Will Hollis. Will, we understand you've been talking to some people that are really going to be suffering with this weather and with the pay cut.
Yes, well, the Met Office is describing it as a multi-hazard event. Strong winds, some heavy snowfall accumulation, heavy rain, all of that in various different parts of the UK. There is an amber weather warning for snow. That's in Scotland and parts of northern England. But there are various different yellow weather warnings for snow and rain across parts of England. So pretty much everywhere you are this weekend, as the storm Bert lands on Saturday, you can expect to see adverse weather conditions, and that comes with all sorts of warnings, including from the RAC. They say that there could be rapidly changing conditions, and drivers should be especially careful if they're out driving on the roads, making sure that if they are going to drive out, they've got a defrosted car. Network Rail also giving out warnings too, and all of this comes as Ofgem raises the price cap by £21 a year, meaning that some people will find it even harder to heat their homes this year. I'm in Sutton in Ashfield, a former coal mining town where some people may feel a lot poorer than other parts of the United Kingdom, and paying their bills might be a little bit more difficult. I visited a warm hub where people have been keeping warm, and here on the streets I've been speaking to a few different people about how that price cap rise might affect them, including pensioners.
It could be a case of either heating or eating.
It affects everybody really through everyday living, through your cost of what you've already paid out for, whether it's your council tax, your rent, anything. It just affects everybody. That little few pence or pound, it costs you. So where that goes up, like we get a pay rise, we don't really get a pay rise because that money goes on to energy bills or other bills, so it cripples everybody really.
Every time anything goes wrong now, well, Conservatives left us a $22 billion for anything, not just that.
Well, Ofgem is the independent price regulator for energy companies. It's not ran by the government. But it's important to recognise that many people right now who are of pension age have lost the winter fuel allowance worth £300 removed from their payment that they would get around about this time by the new Labour government. One of the first things that they did, they said they need to raise money to fill a £22 billion black hole. Let's hear from Lee Anderson, the local Reform MP here in Ashfield.
Just been speaking to some pensioners in the indoor market here, and they're in there now. They meet in there most mornings because they can't afford to put the central heating on. They're having a cup of tea. They'll probably nurse a cup of tea for 3 or 4 hours, keep warm in there. That's the lengths that pensioners are going to in this country to keep warm. Labour's own assessment on the winter fuel payment cut said that 4,000 people, 4,000 pensioners would die in this country as a result of this wicked cut. They've done exactly that, so I fear for some of the pensioners in Ashfield and around the country.
Well, in some parts of the country, Storm Bert will bring 60-mile-per-hour winds. There are a lot of worries, particularly for vulnerable people, when there is snow, ice, and there could even be some localised flooding, the Environment Agency says. A bit of a perfect storm, and we're not even into December yet, and the winter months are still ahead of us.
Well, Will Hollis, thank you very much for bringing us that from a slightly wet and definitely quite a cold part of the world in the East Midlands.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you're going to be this weekend. You're going to get some kind of weather that's going to be fairly hideous, to be honest with you.
The last couple of days have just been frighteningly chilly.
It was freezing this morning, and I'm married to a fresh air freak who, despite being able to lie in bed until 10 o'clock in the morning, good morning, darling, if you're watching, he leaves the window open at night.
No.
It was -4 this morning on the balcony outside. We live in a flat. Yeah, -4. And he left the window open.
The window?
Yeah.
Intentionally?
Yep. It's all right, I pushed him out of it.
Your household is as bonkers as I imagined it would be.
Yeah, thank you very much. Meanwhile, I've been offered £5 for you.
Oh, very good.
Oh, no, the bananas. Sorry, the bananas.
No, well,
no, they don't want you, they just want the bananas.
Which banana? Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. And up next, we're going to be talking ASBOs. Yes, they're back with the government charging police with cracking down on antisocial behaviour. But will officers be able to bring back order to our streets?
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m. 6 a.m.
The former royal correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Good to see you this morning, Charles. And so good to see Catherine back to work with a hug.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there are a few royal jobs that, touch at the heartstrings, and this is certainly one of those. And I think it's the first time we've actually seen Catherine back in, a royal duty since she herself confirmed that she'd finished chemotherapy.
Done so much, haven't they, the Princess of Wales and the King, to raise awareness for these cancers.
Here we have both the King and Catherine having, explained to the nation and the rest of the world that they were battling or are still battling cancer, just like everyone else.
How sincere is all of this? I mean, it looks like she's a wonderful, kind, caring woman, but I don't know. I've never met her.
Well, she is a wonderful, kind, caring woman. That is without a shadow of a doubt. And William heard about this young lady on a visit to the air ambulance, and they invited her because she's a photographer, so she wanted to take. She has a bucket list and wanted to take pictures of an investiture. I mean, make no mistake. People like Catherine are just absolutely wonderful in what they do and how they do it. I mean, and Catherine is the superstar of the royal family. Of that, there is no doubt.
It's the cockles of my heart, Charles. It really does. It's really good to see you. Thanks very much.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Charles. Thanks. And Liz, who is this 16-year-old amateur photographer who was hugged by Princess of Wales yesterday, has said it was a dream come true.
I bet it was.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Persistent antisocial behaviour offenders could face up to 2 years in prison. This as the government plans to reinstate a form of ASBOs.
Not a new idea, is it? The new respect orders are expected to be introduced as part of the government's crime and policing bill, which is out at the beginning of next year, in what the government are calling a return of law and order for the UK. Right, OK. Mark White, a return of law and order to the UK. Is this going to work? What's going on?
Well, it's clear, I think, what the government is trying to do in terms of shifting the focus. It wants to really return to sort of the fundamentals, the basics of policing the street, especially with all the furore that we've had of late about tweets and the investigation by Essex Police, now disbanded into the journalist Alison Pearson. Maybe they didn't get the message about the direction of travel that the new government wants to go in. But they want to see a return to fundamental policing, to get back, to go after the kind of crimes that may be described as lower level, but that can really blight communities. And we're thinking not just about the antisocial behaviour element, but shoplifting. We got the recent announcements from the government that they are getting rid of the £200 cap, that you don't get prosecuted for stealing anything below that. So they want to show that they are going after those persistent offenders that do, over long periods of time, cause such misery in towns and centres across the country.
And yet, this 2-year prison sentence that's been on all the press releases that everyone's regurgitating today, I mean, aren't we supposed to believe that our prisons are completely full to busting and we're letting out people who've committed heinous sexual offences? Are we really going to be banging people up in prison for graffiti?
Well, look, that element of it is clearly just a nonsense because, you know, it was the same with ASBOs. You know, they had a jail term attached to it, but very rarely did it ever get that far. And you're right, the emphasis is on avoiding custodial sentences. So the other types of sanction that the law enforcement agencies would have for someone who is not abiding by what they're now going to call respect orders would be unlimited fines, potentially work placements in the community, nighttime curfews or daytime curfews, that kind of thing. But all of that requires a level of supervision and manpower to be able to operate these systems as well.
There's a reason the original ASBOs were scrapped in 2014 by the coalition government after being introduced by Tony Blair in 1998, wasn't it?
Yep.
Because they didn't work. And they became a badge of honour. You would get people going, oh, I've got a couple of ASBOs, so why is this going to be any different?
Well, it might not make that much difference at the end of the day in terms of the individual respect orders, but I think one thing to be welcome, perhaps, is that it does signal a direction of travel from this government in that it wants to return to sort of fundamental policing, to the issues of law and order that many people care about, and not the kind of issues that we saw under the last government that were as a result of the online harms bill, the sort of online safety measures that, yes, well, they were to be absolutely welcomed in terms of safeguarding young people from being exploited and groomed online, perhaps went too far when we are seeing the policing of hearty words. And as I say, Alison Pearson, the most obvious latest example of that. So a shift away from that and a focus on trying to go after the crimes that people in communities across the country care about, I think is to be welcomed. Quite how they do that, when you've got the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police saying in recent days that they are facing eye-watering cuts in their budget. £450 million is believed they're going to have to find, which will mean a freeze on recruitment, 2,000 fewer officers. Well, one thing we know about going after the lower-level crimes is that arrests will have to be made, people will have to be processed. You take an offender off the street to arrest them for shoplifting. You've got to then take that offender off to a custody suite, and sometimes you're waiting 3, 4, 5 hours to process someone for what is a low-level offence. And while that maybe welcome the fact that these people for lower level offences are being dealt with, it will require a level of resource from the police to be able to do that. And if you're cutting police resources, how on earth are you going to do it?
No, absolutely. Huge amounts of manpower at a time when manpower is being squeezed in police forces around the country. I suppose the other issue with this is there'll be significant regional variation, perhaps. Different forces will be interpreting this and applying it in different ways.
Yeah, it's going to be done as a pilot initially. It's going to be introduced as part of the crime and policing bill when that goes through Parliament, and then there will be pilot schemes to get best practice, and it'll be rolled out across the country. So it's not going to be instant, but one of, there are certain measures in there I think people will probably welcome, such as trying to stop those persistent offenders, and it's no longer aimed at children. There will have to be separate measures.
10-year-olds,
absolutely, yeah. So it will be adults who are part of a persistent offending behaviour in the likes of town centres, so banning them from drinking in areas and open ground. Another thing that it will be looking at is the issues around vehicles that are used for antisocial behaviour. We're thinking of kind of trials bikes and the like that are used in parkland, e-scooters up on pavements, cars which gather sometimes 200 strong in city centres for, street racing meets that cause absolute havoc in those communities as well. The police will be empowered to seize vehicles without having to go through the current rigmarole, which is giving out a number of warnings before they then escalate to that point. Well, so there are some elements to be welcomed, but practically speaking, the government can talk about a direction of travel and how determined they are to get to grips with low-level offending. But if you don't have the resources to do that, that's where you run up against a brick wall.
The proof of the pudding will be in the eating, won't it?
It will, and of course,
thank you very much.
It has to be persistent. So, Dawn, you just throwing banana skins at me like you did in the start of the show. I can't ASBO you for that unless you do it twice. So, There we go. I'm going to get on the phone to Yvette Cooper and get you slapped with a respect order.
3 police forces were involved in investigating Alison Pearson's Facebook post or Twitter post. 3 police forces.
Incredible. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come. Indeed, Sir Keir Starmer has backed the International Criminal Court's arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu. Although, has he? The government's position remains surprisingly murky. That next.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold but icy picture out there for most of us. Showers continuing for some, but actually sunny skies for many ahead of Storm Bert, which is approaching for the weekend. An intensifying area of low pressure, bringing milder, wetter, windier weather to the UK, but on its leading edge, the risk of some significant snow for northern parts of the country. But for the time being, well, mostly the snow is over hills of northern and western Scotland, northwest England, North Wales through the day, rain and sleet showers at lower levels, and actually away from those areas, plenty of dry and bright weather. Feeling pleasant enough with lighter winds compared with recent days and brighter skies, 5 to 7 Celsius. Into the evening, though, we'll see a continued risk of some icy patches as temperatures fall away, and we've got extensive lying snow currently across Scotland, certainly. So clear skies and already below freezing at 5 o'clock. Northern Ireland, likewise, clear spells for a time, icy patches on the roads and pavements. And for England and Wales, a fine evening with the showers tending to fade away, but temperatures are also starting to plummet. And it's going to be a cold, frosty, in many places icy evening, with temperatures falling well below freezing across Scotland and eastern England. But to the west, we've got Storm Bert's rain moving in. Heavy rain for Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, falling as snow over the higher parts of mid and North Wales and Northern Ireland, but only temporarily before it turns back to rain. However, a longer spell of snow is expected for Northern England and Scotland. Up to 40 centimetres over hills, 5 to 10 at lower levels could cause serious disruption during Saturday, but by the end of the day, it's all back to rain, heavy rain at that, risk of flooding across Wales and the southwest, and gales developing widely.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello to you. I'm Jules. Buckley issues if you're heading towards Merseyside this lunchtime. Firstly, the M53 southbound before Eastham Junction 5, so the A41 turn-off. There's been a collision there. It's struggling. A lane is blocked. The eastbound M62 is closed from the Rocket at 4 to Highton at 5 and queuing at the scene of a collision. Now, if you're heading south down the M42 in the West Midlands, Junction 4 Blythegate to the Junction 3A M40 turn-off, all the traffic being held is queuing at the scene of a collision. Very slow both sides now. A southbound M1 before Daventry 16, lane 1 of 4 after the roadworks is combed off. There's been a collision. And the anti-clock M25 from junction 26, Waltham Abbey to Enfield 25. Seeing queues back to the Bell Common Tunnel, not help by an earlier broken down vehicle. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
A very good afternoon to you. The time is 34 minutes past 2 and these are your latest GB News headlines. Gatwick Airport has confirmed that part of their south terminal has been evacuated to investigate what they've called a security incident. Sussex police have confirmed that they were called to the airport this morning following a suspected prohibited item being found in some luggage. They also added that an explosive ordnance disposal team has been deployed to the airport as a precaution. The Ofgem energy price cap has been announced this morning and it's bad news for households. The regulator has revealed that as of January 1st, the energy bills of an average household will increase by 1.2%. Given the 10% hike in October and the cuts to pension and fuel allowance, the news of a further rise this morning will likely come as a blow to many across the UK. Earlier, Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey put pressure on the government to support those who need it most.
Energy bills are already too high. The idea they're going up even further is just outrageous. We don't want these energy bills going up any further, and we must bring back the winter fuel payment for pensioners. It's really cold at the moment. I'm really worried that there will be millions of pensioners not putting on their heating because of the reduction and the abolition of the winter fuel payment.
New measures will give police the power to crack down harder on antisocial behaviour. That's coming as part of the government's attempt to return order to our streets. Breaching a so-called respect order will carry the threat of being arrested and facing a prison sentence, as well as the risk of an unlimited fine. It's believed that this move could signal the return of antisocial behaviour orders, or ASBOs, which were previously in force across the UK and are still used in Scotland. Out on the streets, people are hoping that these new measures will actually work.
I mean, it's got to follow through, hasn't it? You know, it's got to be a constant. If you don't keep it constantly going, it's not going to work.
I'm not sure that they will, because people will still go on doing what they want and hope nobody notices.
There's a lot that's going on and something has to be done. It will sort of make people think again before they do something.
And the much-anticipated musical Made into a Movie hits our screens today. Expected to be a smash hit at the box office, Wicked is predicted to make between $100 and $200 million during its opening weekend alone. Starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, the film has so far had mixed reviews, but is still set to have people flocking to the cinemas this weekend. That's all for me for now. Sophia Wenzel will have more in the next half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 2, and there's plenty more coming up on today's programme, of course. But before that, let's check in with Martin Daubney, who, of course, is up at 3 o'clock. Martin, what have you got for us?
Well, of course, as the temperatures plummet and the prices of energy go up, today we'll be championing pensioners once again, as you've been doing nobly on your show. I'll speak to a campaigner who told me one of his users has said the best chance she's got of staying warm this winter is if she goes to France and takes a dinghy back to Britain to get her heating for free. A disgraceful situation that pensioners find themselves in, feeling totally abandoned by this country. I've got two sensational immigration exclusives. The first, the Labour Party promised to end asylum hotels, didn't they? Well, we got inside a luxury asylum hotel in Warwick, the picturesque town. 360 military-aged men shipped in at 24 hours notice, all bookings cancelled, nobody in the area told. I'll be speaking to a local publican who says this is totally and utterly unacceptable. And secondly, Newham Council, one of the highest crime rates in all of Britain, is hoovering up properties in Farnborough, way above the market rate, and shipping out its problem homeless families. Again, no consultation with anybody in the area, buying up properties that locals cannot even afford because they're pumping the prices through the roof. I'll be joined by a councillor who says that this also has to stop. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of Christmas markets. No, I'm not. They're rubbish. £8 for a pint, £12 for a curry hot dog. A curry hot dog. It's Christmas. I don't want a German Christmas. I want a traditional Christmas. Christmas markets are totally and utterly rubbish. I put that to a guy who calls himself Mr. Christmas. I suspect we won't get on. All come in, 3 till 6.
Ah, humbug. Martin,
indeed.
everything about Christmas is German. The Christmas tree, German. Presents indoors, German. Prince Albert, German. I mean, of course, we had... it was all brought over from Germany. You can't complain Christmas markets are German. Come on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I can.
Looking forward to this
traditional
show.
British Christmas.
Calm down. I'll give him another banana, love. Thank you very much. Martin Daubney up at 3 o'clock. Oh, dear Lord.
The Christmas tree itself, German.
It doesn't matter, Tom. Calm down.
OK.
Calm down. It's only a Christmas market.
OK.
Yes, calm down. Have a banana.
I just like an overpriced pint myself, you know?
Well, yes, indeed.
Christmassy.
Look, it's the whole spirit of it. It's just going out there and... it's a bit overpriced and it's slightly tatty and everything's cheaper online, obviously. But,
Of course,
I mean,
but then you don't
it's
get
the spirit.
The festivity of, you know...
Yes.
And the economic stimulus that it provides.
Yes, indeed. Unless you're going to the Christmas markets where they've got extra security and armed police wandering around this year.
Yeah, those are curious.
Yeah.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer has backed the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. But there are mixed reports that are now emerging from Downing Street on whether the UK would actually enforce those warrants if Israel's Prime Minister entered this country.
Some countries actually have come out and said, right, if he lands here, then the Netherlands being one of them, he's going to be arrested.
But on the other hand, Hungary has come out and said, we're going to completely ignore it, and has actually invited Benjamin Netanyahu to come and visit the country.
Because it's a decision. It's not enforceable. No one can make you do it, by the way. Any case.
That's how nicely you want to be seen in the international bodies of the world.
Israel's United Nations ambassador has now warned the countries allied to their cause to boycott the ICC warrants, calling them a shameful and political decision.
Well, let's cross live to Westminster, where our political correspondent Olivia Utley is, who's been trying all day to put together some sense out of the government. Because, Olivia, I don't think a single person in this country actually understands what the government's saying here.
No, it's the very definition of mixed messages. We've had Keir Starmer spokesman saying last night that the government would respect the ICC's verdict. Now, you can extrapolate that just logically to mean that the UK would ratify that ICC court judgment, i.e. release its own domestic arrest warrant, and would therefore arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came to the UK. So that's what we were all saying the government line was this morning. Then Yvette Cooper backtracked, watered down what Keir Starmer had said, and said that it wouldn't be up to her whether or not Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested, and that it is very unlikely that he would be arrested. Well, what does she mean by that? It seems that she means that she's basically hoping that he doesn't want to come to the UK at all, and she might be lucky there. He doesn't seem to be planning a trip to the UK anytime soon, and his advisors will probably advise him to stay away. Basically, the Labour government is walking a very, very thin diplomatic diplomatic tightrope here. If they ratify that ICC judgment and say that they will arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to the UK, they risk really, really angering the Americans. As we've just heard there, Joe Biden has no time for this ICC judgment. Donald Trump will have no time for it either. And it could set up quite a difference between UK and US foreign policy on this very, very important Israeli question. On the other hand, if Keir Starmer were to do the same as Hungary and to say that the UK will simply ignore this ICC arrest warrant, well, that would really anger people in his own party, people on the left of the Labour Party, who already think that this Labour government has cozied up to Israel too much. And it would also land Keir Starmer in hot water diplomatically. The UK is one of the key signatories of the ICC, and actually one of the chief prosecutors of the ICC is British. So it'd be really awkward for Keir Starmer just to dismiss that judgment out of hand. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place here, and the way he seems to be dealing with it is basically to try and fudge and obfuscate as much as possible and hope that it all is hypothetical, all theoretical, and that actually Benjamin Netanyahu will have no interest in coming to the UK at all.
Curious one, isn't it? Because ostensibly we're not getting this clear line out of the government. They've said in the previous day that they support the ruling, and now they're saying it's somehow independent of government in terms of whether or not it would be enforced. But that's not how it's worked in the past. Do you think beyond the sort of level of ambiguity here, there's actually some duplicity from some of our top politicians?
Well, it does feel a little bit as though the Labour government is being disingenuous at the very least. Yvette Cooper saying that it wouldn't be up to her. Well, it sort of would be up to her, because that ICC court judgment would have to then be ratified by a UK court, and that order to ratify the judgment would come from the UK government. So the government is sort of saying at the moment that it basically has nothing to do with this. It's sort of washing its hands of the issue. But actually, the government would be very, very involved if the UK were to ratify that ICC decision and it would be the government who would be choosing whether or not to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came to the UK. So I think you might be right there, Tom. There is a lot of deliberate ambiguity going on here, and it perhaps crosses into at least disingenuity on the part of Yvette Cooper, sort of acting as though it is totally the UK government would be totally uninvolved in this decision, when in reality it very much looks as though the UK government would be involved.
Olivia, if I remember rightly, when this was first requested that be declared an arrest warrant back in May, the Tory government did actually object. They made a decision, they objected. That's what changed when Labour came into power and David Lammy was installed as Foreign Secretary, isn't it? That's what the difference is now.
Yes, and it is a pretty big difference, because we've already heard from the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel. She has said that Labour should be condemning this ICC court judgment. She says that they should be ignoring it. She says that it's deliberately provocative. And this is actually quite useful for the Conservatives. Keir Starmer has had an Israel problem for a very, very long time now. Some of the most difficult moments, both in his time as leader of the opposition and in his time as Prime Minister, have been when this schism in the Labour Party over Israel re-emerges. There are plenty of those, mainly on the left of the Labour Party, who have no time for Israel whatsoever, who were protesting for a ceasefire before Labour came into power. Keir Starmer has taken a different line and was pretty much on board with what Rishi Sunak said. He has always defended and is still saying that Israel has a right to defend itself. And obviously, whenever an issue like this comes up, then Keir Starmer is almost ripped in two, cleaved in two, because both sides of his party are breathing down his neck about it. And the Conservatives, both in power and now outside of power, use that to their advantage. The Conservatives are very strongly behind Israel, always have been. And Priti Patel is now suggesting that Keir Starmer isn't being strong enough in allowing Israel to defend itself. So I think this could potentially be very useful for the Conservatives in that it highlights that very, very tricky issue within Labour and could cause some problems for Keir Starmer within his own party. There could be a time not too far from now where you start seeing MPs protesting Keir Starmer's decision, whichever way he comes down, one way or the other. Certainly there could be a lot of disquiet in the Labour Party over this.
Well, Olivia Utley, thank you very much indeed for bringing us all of that and trying to clear up what is, frankly, an almighty mess.
Yes. The ICC does have no powers to enforce this, by the way, and at the same time they also announced that a Hamas terrorist would also face an international arrest warrant.
Yes, the leader of Hamas.
Yeah, who's dead?
Well, the new leader of Hamas, because Israel just keeps...
Killing them, but the one named in the original...
Yahya Sinwar.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, he's now Nana Singon. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Coming up, who had it worse, Generation Z or the baby boomers? We're having that debate next.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Patrick Christys Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
We all know that pensioners will freeze to death this winter because of the cruel cut to the winter fuel payment, rising council tax, the energy price cap going up, all of that. Now, instead of looking after them, we appear to have a government that seems to want to make their lives worse. Now, they might not care, but you do. And thanks to you, I have now raised more than £270,000 for Friends of the Elderly. You have raised more than the entire amount they gave away in grants for the most desperate pensioners last year. So amazing effort. Thank you very much. Now, I said I'd do a freezing cold swim to raise awareness for how cold some pensioners will be in their own homes this winter. And on Saturday, I went to Stickle Tarn in the Lake District. I'd like to give a massive thank you to the people who turned up to meet me along the way. I would also like to give a monumental shout-out to the wonderful camera crew. We've got John Clark and Joe Scowen, and our health and safety maestro, known only as The Stag. I come up with these crackpot ideas, but it is down to those wonderful people to make them actually happen. I would also like to give you a little warning. There are aspects of this footage that you will not be able to unsee. I am aware that at times my body resembles a bag of milk. But you know what? If me embarrassing myself helps to raise a bit more money, then so be it. And you can go to justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors now to donate.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christys Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christys Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes to 3, and today an interesting article appeared in the Daily Telegraph.
Yes, it has. But first of all, I just got to read this one out. You know, you went on a rant about Christmas markets and everything being German, which you didn't have a problem with. Martin Daubney, who's up next, by the way, has a problem with Christmas markets. But as you pointed out, everything
I love a Christmas market.
Everything about Christmas is German, apart from... Where's your comment? Go on now, Claudette. Hi, Claudette. Hope you're having a lovely afternoon. King Wenceslas was...
Good.
Check. He wasn't German.
You never hear the word King Wenceslas without the word good as sort of the prefix,
yes,
right?
No.
He's, I think it's quite a good...
You're just not admitting you were wrong. He's not German.
I never said he wasn't.
No, but you said
everything. I said
everything...
pretty much everything.
Said, look,
right,
listen,
okay.
back me up. He said everything...
The titular character of One Christmas Carol is Czech.
Yes, but you said everything Christmas was German. Quite clearly.
Oh, I was
wrong.
using hyperbole.
And you know what, lovely people out, this is the problem with Young people.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, we speak in absolutes, is that it?
Yes, absolutely.
And old
Yeah,
people
you are
don't?
representing young people,
Am I?
and I'm representing older people. Just
Right.
slightly older, obviously.
No, I think there's only a couple of years between us. But there's an article, of course, in today's Daily Telegraph that suggests that Generation Z actually don't have it as bad as boomers.
No. Back me up out here, people. I'm a boomer by 11 days. I just make it. I was born at the very tail end of 1964, which makes me a boomer.
So some of the things in this list, you've got them in front of you, do you?
Yes, I have, yeah. OK. So I'm going to give you a bit of a test, right? OK. So you lot are always whinging you can't afford housing.
I have to clarify, I'm not Gen Z, I'm just a millennial.
Yeah, just a millennial. Same difference, you know? Young and irritating and obsessed with bananas.
Well, that's later.
OK,
that's later.
right, we're going to... Right, OK, when I was younger, OK, but you don't have to do this, we had to put up with nylon bedding.
OK,
do you remember those?
I don't have nylon bedding.
Do you remember those people? Nylon sheets. And back in the...
Although they were in houses that you could afford.
No, they were in prefabs for most of us. No, I'm not that old, to be. But no, most of us were renting, by the way. It's a myth that everybody back in the day owned their own home, by the way. Most of us were renting.
A higher percentage of people own their own homes, and it was cheaper to do so.
OK, right. Do you ever go out on a bike without a cycling helmet on?
All the time.
Oh, right, OK. We did that all the time.
Yeah.
Now I see little kiddies on little kiddie scooters.
Do you know what?
With cycle helmets
I've
on.
read through some of these things, whether it's, no cycle helmets. There's one a bit later about travelling in the boot of a car. I've travelled in the boot of a car. Is that really something that happened in the old days and doesn't happen now? I used to travel in the boot of a car all the time.
Why?
Because there were too many people for the car on holiday.
OK, we have to go. We've run out of time.
Oh, no.
My God.
Well,
it's goodbye from us.
It's goodbye from us.
And the bananas.
And our modern art.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on it. GBNews.com/you'll say. But up next, it's Martin.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Plenty of weather to talk about for this weekend, but for the rest of today, at least it's bright, it's dry, there's some sunshine. It is still cold with icy patches, and then Storm Bert starts to move in overnight. Now that's going to bring a lot of mild air, some wet and windy weather, but as it clashes with the cold air, some parts of the UK will see significant snowfall. Ahead of that, there are some wintry showers into the northwest of Scotland, northwest England. They fade away overnight with clear spells at first, at least in the east and the north. It's going to be chilly with temperatures dipping below freezing. Then the rain arrives, falling as snow for a time for parts of Northern Ireland and mid to North Wales. Doesn't last. The mild air rushes in, along with strengthening winds, and as a result, it's going to turn back to rain for Northern Ireland and Wales. But it's a different story for Scotland and Northern Ireland. As that band of rain bumps into the cold air, we can expect 2 to 4 hours of heavy snow, accumulating very quickly through the morning, 5 to 10 centimetres at lower levels across parts of northern England into central and southern Scotland, 20 to 40 centimetres over hills with blizzards and ice accretion as well. So really hazardous conditions across northern England and Scotland throughout Saturday morning into early afternoon. Before then, the mild air arrives along with a strengthening wind, widespread gales, especially in the west, and the snow turns back to rain for northern England and Scotland with a rapid thaw setting in. So we might start the day with snow, but we end the day with temperatures in the double figures, even 15 Celsius in the southwest, but with heavy rain and risk of flooding across Wales and the southwest with that rain accumulating through Saturday and into Sunday. More than 100 millimetres possible over higher parts of South Wales and Dartmoor. Then a quieter spell at first next week. After a very mild Sunday, temperatures return closer.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth